Everybody, and welcome to the town meeting for May 2021. We will start the Pledge of Allegiance before the meeting opens. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, I am told we have a quorum, so we will come to order. I will introduce myself, and I'll get to that later as well. My name is Kate Potterman, the moderator now of Brookline Town Meeting. It's a pleasure to be here. And now the next thing on our list of things to do is to acknowledge the publication and proper service of the warrant. And I'm going to call up the town clerk to confirm that for us, Ben Kaufman.
Madam Moderator, I present to you a truly attested and properly noticed warrant for the 2021 annual town meeting.
Thank you very much. Actually, can you take it? Okay, we have many new town meeting members and some who are being joining up again, as I would say. So what we are going to do now is Mr. Kaufman is going to give them the oath of office and swear them into office. And I will now turn the podium over to him again. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. I invite all new town meeting members to raise their right hand and repeat after me for the oath of office. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will faithfully and impartially discharge all the duties incumbent on me as a town meeting member, according to the best of my ability and understanding, agreeably to the rules and regulations of the Constitution, the laws of the Commonwealth, and under rules, regulations, and bylaws made under authority thereof. Congratulations to all of our new members.
Yes, congratulations and welcome to you all. We will now do something which is a tradition every year, which is to read the roll of the deceased town meeting members, after which we will have a moment of silence. And Mr. Kaufman has that list, and I will turn the podium over to him again. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Please join me in remembering some former town meeting members we have lost. Robert Abrams, Peter Ames, Morton Berenson, Bradford Standish, Frank Caro, Sumner Chertok, Brian Connery, James Griffin, Nancy Guzelian, Marjorie Hickey, Virginia LaPlante, Philip Leader, Stephen Lippman, Winifred Mason, Stanley Rabinowitz, Leonora Should I start from the beginning or? Excellent. Theodore Skolnick, Stanley Schumann, Robert Sloan, Brenda Sawyer, and Bruce Wolfe.
Okay, we now are turning over to Bernard Green, a member of the Select Board, for a brief moment.
Good evening, Madam Town Moderator and Madam Chair of the Select Board. and other esteemed members of this town meeting. I'm Bernard Green, and the final 2 years of Sandy Gadsby's tenure as town moderator, the chair of the select board. My purpose tonight is to give a brief tribute to Sandy Gadsby as he turns the reins of town meeting over to Kate Poverman. Of course, I'm speaking solely on behalf of myself, but I note that other members of town meeting have also conveyed their appreciations to Sandy. One such tribute was circulated to town meeting members' listserv by John Bassett. Like John, I congratulate moderator Kate Poverman on her election. I'm glad Sandy Gadsby will assist her, and I applaud Scott Ananian for his hard-fought but respectful campaign and his generally very helpful and professional service to the town in many ways that are not always apparent. Also on the stage is our new town clerk, Ben Kaufman. Congratulations on your election, Ben. Sandy Gadsby graduated from Amherst College and Harvard Law School and worked for many decades with the law firm Foley Hoag as a partner and now of counsel. For 27 years, Sandy Gadsby served the town of Brookline as its moderator at every annual town meeting, fall special town meeting, and other special town meetings called by the select board. He was an excellent and dedicated moderator for those many, many years. As town meeting members, we may remember his calm, professional demeanor on the stage of the high school, helping us through the increasingly long and complex list of warrant articles at the various town meetings. Maybe we didn't always agree with his rulings, but no one could reasonably say that Sandy wasn't able to keep town meeting relatively even-keeled during both calm and turbulent seas. Maybe those skills were sharpened as a Navy aviator, landing on aircraft carriers over 250 times. It's a pretty difficult task, requiring a high level of skill, great courage, and cool execution. Traits which I would guess is good training for a moderator, although not the only way to the moderator's dais. On occasion, he may have been a little gruff, but he always recovered with a smile and an attempt to smooth ruffled feathers. Maybe those soft skills have been developed by his family life and his happy marriage, and maybe most importantly, being a father of 2 children, a grandfather to 8, and a great-grandfather to 9 children. Playing with children, as many of us know, over the years will soften anyone. However, Sandy Gadsby developed his skills to steer our town meeting for 27 years. He deserves our heartfelt thanks. And after this town meeting, where he will be acting as assistant moderator, we will wish him all the best in his next set of challenges and service to Brookline. Thank you, Sandy.
I echo that. Thank you very much, Mr. Green. I appreciate that. We have good news, which is that Jim Slayton, our leader in the Star Spangled Banner, is now at the meeting. So I would like to turn over the mic and center of attention to him so he can lead us in the song.
Good evening, Madam Moderator, and welcome to town meeting, everyone. Please join me in the singing of the national anthem as you are able. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming? whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Slate, and I appreciate that very much. Delighted you were able to make it. Okay, now we are going to turn to our chat monitor, Ben Franco, who is going to explain the Zoom features of this meeting, which will be very important when you vote and when you want to send a message to the moderator and other things. So Ben, I turn it over to you. Thank you.
Moderator, tell those who are present in the meeting how to now. The audio working now? Thank you, Madam Moderator. I'm going to walk through some of the functionality of Zoom this evening and tell those present in the meeting how to navigate around the platform. By default, your microphone will be muted and you'll be unable to unmute yourself until the support staff for this meeting gives you permission to do so. When it's your turn to speak, the moderator will call on you. A few seconds later, you will see a prompt on your screen asking you to unmute yourself, and you'll have to click OK to acknowledge that prompt. After seeing the prompt, you may need to complete the unmuting process by clicking the mute unmute button at the bottom far left corner of the screen. A note to town meeting couples. Please be sure that only one of you have your device's audio turned on when you are unmuted. Having only one audio output will help to limit audio interference for those present in this meeting. If you're a town meeting member who has joined tonight's session by phone, your microphone will also be muted by default. The votes of town meeting members participating via phone will be captured via roll call following the completion of the 30-second voting period. This will obviously require town meeting members joining by phone to be unmuted. The support staff for this meeting will handle the unmuting process centrally, and no action will be required by town meeting members on the phone. When called upon to vote by the moderator, those on the phone should wait approximately 3 seconds and then tell the moderator how they wish to be recorded on the pending vote. Immediately to the right of the mute unmute button is the start stop video button. This button allows you to turn your allows you to turn your camera on and off. If you're comfortable doing so, and your internet bandwidth and technology allows, you may turn your camera on. If you experience choppy audio or video during tonight's session, we suggest that you keep your video off for the duration of the meeting. Turning a video off will limit the internet bandwidth you are uploading, thereby allowing for more room for you to download audio and video. As a reminder, if your camera is turned on, it will broadcast everything it captures to those present in the meeting. Please be mindful of this. The participant button is immediately to the right of the start stop video button, allowing you to see the name of everybody present in the meeting. At the top of the list of those present, you'll see a number of accounts related to the running of this virtual town meeting. Below these accounts, you'll see a list of town meeting members, staff, and guests present in the meeting, listed in alphabetical order by last name. Next to each name, you'll see information about who a town meeting member represents, a precinct number, and the letters AL to denote at-large status, or that a person is a guest in the meeting. A guest might be a non-town meeting member, presenter on a warrant article, or town staff. For example, this meeting naming convention will make a town meeting member appear as Obama, Michelle, P1. Immediately to the right of the participants button, you'll see a chat icon. You can access the chat feature by clicking this icon. During town meeting, you will only be able to chat with the chat monitor account. This means you'll be unable to chat with other town meeting members individually or as a group. So please do not use the chat feature to try and broadcast your views on a particular article to your colleagues. During town meeting, the chat feature should be used for two purposes. First, to get in line to address town meeting, akin to lining up at the microphone during an in-person town meeting. Your request to speak could, for example, be to ask a question or make a comment. If you wish to ask a question or make a comment during town meeting, please send a message to the chat monitor account that contains, in this order, your first name, last name, the letter P and your precinct number, or the letters AL and the word question or comment. For example, Hillary Clinton, P5, comment. The second reason you might use the chat feature this evening is to raise a procedural point. For example, to call the question or to raise a point of order. If you wish to make a procedural motion during town meeting, please send a message to the chat monitor account that reads your first name, last name, the letter P and the precinct number, and type the motion you wish to make. For example, Michael Dukakis, P4, point of order. As the chat monitor account receives requests from town meeting members to ask a question or make a comment, I will do my best to post a running list of that queue. To see a queue, you'll need to click on the chat icon. Town meeting members will immediately be called upon if they have a point of order or are calling the question. As a reminder, amendments to warrant articles will not be accepted via the chat feature. Finally, do not use the chat feature to submit requests for technical assistance, to make comments about warrant articles, or to engage in any side conversations with the chat monitor. If you do require technical assistance, please contact tm@brooklinema.gov or 617-879-3110 and identify yourself as a Brookline Town Meeting member. At the bottom of the screen, you'll see a closed caption button labeled CC. Tonight's meeting will be closed captioned to make the proceedings more accessible to town meeting members, guests, staff, and members of the public watching on BIG. Anyone who would benefit or enjoy seeing the closed captions is invited to utilize this functionality. To see captions, click on the CC button, then select Show Subtitles. To turn the captions off, click the CC button again. There is no requirement that you use or do not use the caption feature. Once again, if you encounter any technical problems during tonight's town meeting session and require assistance, you should contact tm@brooklinema.gov or call 617-879-3110 and identify yourself as a Brookline Town Meeting member. Finally, I know there are a number of town meeting members who have not currently been admitted to the waiting room. We are in the process of checking those town meeting members in, and they will be admitted in the next couple of minutes. With that, Madam Moderator, I turn it back to you.
Thank you very much. To get some details out of the way, as the first female moderator in Brookline's history, I am going to follow the tradition of the State House and the federal government, and I would like to be addressed as Madam Moderator. Everyone else, I was talking to Tommy Vitolo, our representative, about this in the State House. I will refer to you by Mr., Ms., or Mrs. if they prefer. The idea of this is to show that everyone is on equal standing with each other. I'm delighted to be here and delighted to be in this room of equals and on the video chat with equals. We represent what is best about Brookline, its diversity, its democracy, and its history of acceptance of each other and our different viewpoints. Town meeting is a place of debate and a place of mutual respect. It is where we come to deliberate on the future of Brookline, which is a heavy and important responsibility, but also a gratifying one and at times a joyful one. I look forward to working with all of you on this journey. Okay, Mr. Rosenthal, what is your point of order?
Thank you, and congratulations also to Madam Moderator. My question is whether, well, I think it's a point of order. I think Ben's wonderful explanation, is there a way to make that accessible to us to jog our memory when we want to do something with the chat line? either, I don't know how, I'm sure there's some technical way, but I'm sure I'm going to forget some of his instructions later.
We will look into that as the meeting progresses.
Thank you.
This is hopefully something which will not be too difficult since we've been through several of these meetings so far. But if in doubt, ask. That's all I have to say. Hold on one second. Okay. Voting is going to be for 30 seconds now. People were getting very itchy during the 45-second period of the votes. So we will have 30 seconds to vote. When there is time for a vote, a screen will come down and you will have the option of voting yes or no, or abstain. Once you hit the button, your vote is recorded. You cannot change it. You can verify the votes the day after voting, which will be posted online. Now we are going to have a practice vote so that we can get used to this process. And I will pose the question, should Brookline become part of Boston? And you will have 30 seconds to answer. Can we start? Has the voting started? It's a difficult question, so take your time to think about it. I'm sorry, I didn't give advance notice. Okay. Well, that's a pretty resounding result. I think we will stay separate as a result of that. Okay. Now, as we go on, when you are called on to speak, I ask you to identify yourself by your name and precinct. If I call on you and speak your name incorrectly and pronounce it incorrectly, please let me know. My name is pronounced Potterman. It took about 20 years for my husband to get that right. Unless arranged beforehand, speakers will have 3 minutes to speak on a particular article. So for yes, Mr. Wyszynski.
Point of order, Neil Wyszynski, Precinct 5. In the past, the countdown clock has been displayed during the voting. Is that going to continue this go round?
We believe that it did show. If it didn't, we will be continuing that tradition, and let us know if that. Oh, yeah. So okay. So if you were looking at me, just continue to look at my spot, and it will take over. Let us know if that continues to be a problem. Thank you for raising that. There are several articles which will be debated, which are Articles 4 through 17. Excuse me, they'll be debated together. 4 through 17, 19 and 20, 25 and 26, 29 and 30, and 38 and 39. Other than that, we will have single debates. There are no motions offered on Articles 2, 4, 5, and 10. Also, there has been a special town meeting called, which will be conducted on May 27th. That is the date. We have also planned a town meeting, and hopefully it will be the date of the last annual town meeting, but we will also have the special town meeting then. We now need to take a vote under state law to allow these proceedings to continue virtually. It was passed by emergency order of Governor Baker to allow these virtual meetings due to the pandemic. And we will now take a vote to allow this meeting to continue virtually. Okay. You have 30 seconds. It's blocked by the, oh. Okay. Well, you tell me when it's over. Oh, okay, thank you. We have one person, as I understand it, two people who need to vote by letting us know their vote over the phone. The first I'm going to call on is Rita McNally.
Hello, Rita McNally, Precinct 2. Yes.
Thank you. And our second? Oh, okay. That was our only phone vote. All right, well, the motion passes and we may proceed. Oh. Okay, so what was the total? Okay, so the total was 230 yes, 2 no, and 3 abstentions. We will now turn to the first article under the annual town meeting. This relates to the appointment of measurers of wood and bark, and it is being moved by Mr. Friedman and seconded by Ms. Ashkenazi. So Mr. Friedman, would you please make this motion?
Ms. Moderator, my name is Danny O'Day. I'm here for Harry Friedman, Precinct 12. Mr. Friedman was unexpectedly delayed tonight, and I will be speaking on his behalf. Tonight, town meeting is being asked to approve the appointment of measurers of wooden arcs. Since the days of Noah, wooden arcs have been a means of travel and refuge from the storm. Built to heavily inspired cubit measurements, it is vital that the builder be exact. That is why we appoint the measurers, to make sure the job is done correctly. Town meeting has appointed these positions for centuries.
Yes, Ms. Ashkenazi.
Miriam Ashkenazi speaking from the Select Board. Thank you. This is a point of personal privilege. Madam Moderator, I hate to interrupt the presentation, but I believe that this warrant article covers the appointment not of a measure of wooden arcs, but of wooden barks. As we all know, a bark is a sailing vessel with 3 to 5 masts. So while we were talking ships, we are referring to barks, not arcs.
Yes, Mr. Friedman. This is quite a serious charge we have here.
Madam Moderator, my apology. Find my place. My apologies to you in town meeting. First, somebody appears to have set all my clocks 15 minutes behind, which sort of delayed my meeting here. Second, I wish to end tonight's naval theme. The warrant article in question has nothing to do with ships, whether of the ark or the bark variety. The article is to appoint the measurers of wood and bark. We're talking trees, firewood, not boats. This is a very serious matter, and I apologize for my companion's total lack of understanding. Ladies and gentlemen, please don't listen to the dummy on the screen. The advisory committee recommends favorable action on the motion offered under Article 1. Thank you.
Oh. Ms. Ashkenazi, do you have anything else to say on this matter?
First, thank you to Harry for your work on this. It was a lot of fun. And I was relieved to not have to spend my first appearance as select board member at town meeting being punny and making jokes about Nori, my campaign dog, you know, wood and bark. Woof, woof. By a vote of 5-0, the select board unanimously recommends favorable action on warrant Article 1. And just in case, here is the campaign dog for your perusal. Thank you.
Is he as eloquent as Mr. Friedman's friend? That's the issue.
Much more so, actually.
All right, well, we will now take a vote on the motion offered under Article 1 regarding the appointment of measurers and bark. You may start voting now. Okay, yes, Ms. McNally, how do you vote on this?
McNally, precinct 2, yes.
Okay, do we have a final tally of the votes? Okay, the total is 224 yes, 3 no, and 9 abstentions. The movement passes, or the motion passes. Our second article is a motion to fund collective bargaining agreements. No motion is being made under this article, so we will move on to Article number 3. Article number 3 is a motion by the select board to enter into compensating balance agreements, an annual authorization that is required under the general laws of Massachusetts. It is being moved by Mr. Green and seconded by Mr. Doty. Mr. Green, you have the floor. Bernard Green. You have 3 minutes.
Sorry. As Madam Moderator stated, this article is filed every year as required by state law, specifically Chapter 44, Section 53F, to give the town's treasurer collector authority to enter into compensating balance agreements if the treasurer collector determines that it is in the best financial interest of the town to do so. Under such agreements, the treasurer collector can make deposits in banks, typically interest-free, in exchange for the bank's waiving its fees on certain bank services. Each year, the amount of such bank services are included in the treasurer collector's budget in case it is determined to be in the interest of the town not to enter into such agreements, but to pay the cost of the bank services and receive interest on any bank deposits. That's the reason for this article, and the Select Board on March 16 voted 5-0 favorable action on warrant Article 3. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Doty, or is it Dowdy? I apologize if you could let me know.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. It's Dennis Dowdy, Town
Thank
Meeting
you.
Member, Precinct 3, speaking for the Advisory Committee. Select Board Member Green stated we vote on this article every year as provided for under the law, and it typically passes unanimously. This article does not specify or approve terms for a compensating balance agreement. It merely grants the treasurer and the Select Board the authority to enter into them. What I didn't know until I dug into this recently is that the ongoing verbal agreements we have with our bank for reduced fees is not actually considered to be a compensating balance agreement as defined under Mass General Law. We haven't had a formal agreement in many years, if indeed we ever did. And furthermore, we don't actually anticipate needing one. So in other words, whether you vote yes or no on this all important issue, it is unlikely to have any effect at all on the town's finances. I am personally curious as to the backstory that led to the requirement that causes so many town meetings in the Commonwealth to vote on this every year at a cost of what it must have added up to hundreds of person hours of productivity since it was enacted in 1986. And perhaps next year I will have a report on that with appropriate puns. The Advisory Committee unanimously recommends favorable action on warrant Article 3.
Okay, thank you very much. In 1 minute, we will have a vote on Article number 3. I need to remind people in the meeting that even if a ballot appears on your screen, you can only vote if you are a town meeting member. All right, we will now. Certainly. Ms. Nobrega, are you?
Sure. Quick question, point of order. Can you confirm that all votes are going to be recorded votes unless they are purely procedural, and you will let us know in advance if a vote is pure procedural and will not be recorded?
Yes, all votes will be recorded unless I say otherwise, and those will mainly be minor votes such as votes to call the question or things like that, which will not be recorded votes. Generally, the default is that they will be recorded votes. All right, now that we know that only town meeting members can vote, we will start the vote for Article number 3 on whether or not to authorize the compensating balance agreements for the year 2022. Ms. McNally?
McNally, precinct 2, yes.
Thank you. Do we have a total of the votes? The motion passes. Thank you. There is not a motion offered under Article 4, which relates to closing out unexpended balances. So we will move on to Article number 5. Here too, we will not be taking any action. Article 5 is a motion to authorize the payment of any unpaid bills, and there aren't any. So we will not be taking any action on Article 5, and we will move on to Article 6. Article 6 is a motion brought by Ms. Ashkenazi and seconded by Ms. Granoff. It is a motion to increase the property tax exemption for certain classes of people. And I will let Ms. Ashkenazi explain that.
Thank you. I'm speaking on behalf of the unanimous select board. This article provides for an increase in the property tax exemption amounts for certain classes of individuals, including surviving spouses, the elderly, the blind and disabled veterans. The proposed increases, which require annual reauthorizations, have been approved annually since fiscal year 1989. In case you were wondering, I was 17 years old that year. The select board voted 5-0 to establish an additional property tax exemption for fiscal year 2022.
Thank you, Ms. Granoff.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Hello, I'm Susan Granoff, Precinct 7 Town Meeting Member, speaking for a unanimous advisory committee. By a vote of 25-0, the advisory committee recommends favorable action on warrant Article 6. Just to add to what was said, it will help about 100 deserving Brookline homeowners, and based on the prior year's costs, it will cost less than $50,000 and will be paid for out of the town's tax abatement overlay reserve account. We urge you to vote favorable action on warrant Article 6.
Thank you. We have no other speakers on this motion, so we will now take a vote on Article 6 to increase the property tax exemptions for certain classes of individuals, as you just heard. Vote will start now. Oh. All right. Okay. We are going to restart the vote because we had the wrong slide up there for the article. We are not voting on Article 8. We are voting on Article 6. So let me know when you're ready. Team? Okay, voting will start now. Thank you. Okay, Ms. McNally.
McNally, Precinct 2, yes.
236 yes, 0 no, 3 abstentions.
Thank you. Oh, sorry, 236 yes, no no's and 3 abstentions. And Ms. McNally, I hereby grant you dispensation to just give us your name and not your precinct number when you call in. Okay, we will now move on to Article number 7, which is moved by Mr. Green and seconded by Mr. Doughty. It is a motion to appropriate $1.9 million of the premium from the sale of town bonds and to apply the funds to the principal owed on the Driscoll bond. This is on page 7.2 of your materials, and I turn the screen over to Mr. Green.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Bernard Green for the Select Board. You know, another advantage of having a AAA bond rating is that bond underwriters are willing to pay more for our bonds than the face amount of the bonds. This extra amount is a premium. Upon the sale of the Driscoll bonds in March of this year, the town received a huge premium, I think almost $10 million. But in the appropriations measure for the Driscoll School reconstruction, there is no language authorizing the use of this premium amount to pay some of the cost of reconstructing the school. This warrant article 7, is presented to fix that oversight and enable the town retroactively to use a portion of the premium for portions of the Driscoll School project, thereby reducing the overall cost of the project that will have to be placed on the town's levy. The select board on March 16 voted 5-0 for favorable action. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Dowdy.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Dennis Dowdy, Town Meeting Member Precinct 3, speaking for the Advisory Committee. Select Board Member Green has already laid out the basic facts and oversight in the drafting of the language for Article 4 of the 2019 Special Town Meeting. Authorized the appropriation of funds for the reconstruction of the Driscoll School, but left out the routine provision that any bond premiums received should be allocated to the project. Therefore, this article is the remedy, which allows us to use the bond premium to reduce the overall project cost by $6,049,008. During the Advisory Committee's deliberations on Article 7, some time was spent on the question of whether we could use those premiums in other ways, for example, to restore geothermal heating to the project, which had been eliminated from the proposal early on to achieve savings. This is not possible because a town meeting has already voted a specific not to exceed amount for the project, and a new authorization vote would be required. And so if the community does desire to pursue this, lobbying for this as a CIP item in the capital budget would be the most appropriate mechanism. The Advisory Committee supports applying the bond premiums to the Driscoll project, which is common practice, and by a vote of 20-0 with 2 abstentions, we recommend favorable action on Article 7.
Thank you very much. Since there are no other speakers, we will take a vote on Article 7. There is a 2/3 vote required, and let me know when the voting begins now. Thank you. Okay, just say yes. It's not very controversial. If I make a motion like this, can you cut my scene if I ever I'll just. Ms. McNally.
McNally, yes.
Thank you.
232 yes, 0 no, 6 abstentions.
Okay, we have 232 yes votes, 0 no votes, and 6 abstentions. The motion passes. We now turn to Article 8, which is found on pages 8.5 and 8-6. It is moved by Mr. Sandman and seconded by Mr. Van Scoyoc. The motion is to authorize the grant of an easement and a restrictive covenant to the town of Brookline from the residents of RSOP. That's what I'll call it, and I'll allow Mr. Sandman to explain exactly what it is. However, it must be amended on page 8.5. If you turn to there, the words "as amended" need to be inserted after the words page 241 in the second paragraph. So a little confusing, but not too confusing. I will turn things over to Mr. Sandman.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Actually, I believe that one of my colleagues on the advisory committee is due to speak on this, excuse me, on this motion.
Oh, Mr. Keynes, I apologize. Yes.
That's all right. Yeah.
Mr. Stephen Keynes, K-A-N-E-S. K-A-N-E-S.
Okay, good evening, Madam Moderator. Steve Kane speaking on behalf of Unanimous Advisory Committee. Warrant Article 8 authorizes the Select Board to accept an emergency access easement and a restrictive covenant from the developer of the residences of South Brookline in connection with its 40B development in Hancock Village. The conveyance of these two interests in land by the developer is in accordance with the developer's comprehensive permit, and both interests are memorialized in corresponding recordable instruments that have previously been voted on and executed by the Select Board, contingent on subsequent town meeting authorization. Town meeting authorization is required because acceptance of the easement and restrictive covenant constitute a transfer of interest in land that must be authorized by town meeting. The emergency access easement agreement is a non-exclusive easement allowing fire trucks and other emergency vehicles and other public emergency apparatus to access a surface parking lot and permanent buildings directly from Thornton Road. The declaration of restrictive covenant is a restrictive covenant prohibiting construction of any new buildings or paved surfaces not permitted by the comprehensive permit on the property surrounding the residents of South Brookline, as well as the northern edge of Hancock Village. Warrant Article 8 was viewed by the advisory committee as technical in nature, given that there is no opportunity at this time for the town to seek any changes to either the restrictive covenant or to the easement that have previously been negotiated. And given that there has seemed to be no logical reason for town meeting not to authorize the Select Board to accept both the restrictive covenant and the easement, the advisory committee by unanimous vote of 27-0 recommends favorable action on the motion under Warrant Article 8 as set forth on pages 8-5 through 8-6 of the combined reports. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Van Scoyac next, please.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I am John Van Scoyac, speaking for a unanimous Select Board on Article 8. On tonight's agenda, this might be the closest we will get to an offer you can't refuse. That's because Article 8 basically asks that you accept an offer of an easement and a covenant, which were in fact imposed by the town through a comprehensive permit issued by the zoning board to the developer of the residences of South Brookline, otherwise known as Hancock Village. The easements are two. First, an easement for emergency access to the residents of South Brookline site, and second, a restrictive covenant disallowing any additional new buildings or paved surfaces on the site not permitted by the comprehensive permit. The Select Board has reviewed and executed these agreements, which are subject to town meeting approval. A unanimous Select Board voted favorable action on the motion offered by the advisory committee and urges town meeting to do similarly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now take a vote on the real Article 8, which is the motion to authorize the grant for the acceptance of a grant of an easement and restrictive covenant. Majority vote is required, and we're ready. Start the vote now, please. Oh, I apologize. 2/3 vote. Damn. Ay, ay, ay. Okay, Ms. McNally. Ms. McNally, can you give us your vote, please? Okay, for the moment, we can't reach Ms. McNally, so may I have the votes as they stand?
Yes, McNally, yes.
Thank you.
232, yes. 1 no, 4 abstentions.
Okay, the vote is 232 yes, 1 no, and 4 abstentions. The motion passes, having reached the 2/3 threshold. Thank you. We now come to the budget, the moment we wait for all year. The budget is Article 9, and the main motion under this article is the one of the Advisory Committee, which begins on page 9-54 and goes through 9-63, in addition to Table 1 and Table 2. These are the versions included in the recent orange supplement mailing that you received. There is one change that I need to point out to you. In paragraph 9, at the bottom of page 9-58, please change the amount of the school maintenance budget from $5,945,631 to $6,417,000. No, $6,417,011. If you could please make that change. The budget motion is made by Mr. Sandman and seconded by Ms. Benka. There is one proposed amendment to the Advisory Committee budget involving the reallocation of a $95,000 amount in the Select Board budget as set forth on the first line of Table 2. This amendment is moved by Ms. Hamilton and seconded by Ms. Fernandez and will be described in greater detail by the speakers. I now call on Mr. Sandman to present the budget. Mr. Sandman, you have 15 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And thank you for that generous allocation of time. I hope I can conform to that.
You don't have to use it all.
Well, I wasn't thinking of that. The budget is the main event of town meeting, so let's begin with a short explanation to new town meeting members of what the Advisory Committee has to do with it. We're the town's finance committee, up to 30 people appointed to 3-year terms by the moderator. Typically, the moderator looks for people with a range of expertise and backgrounds, and currently the committee has people with expertise in architecture, law, real estate, information technology, social sciences, economics, and of course, finance. We don't have a lot of ethnic diversity right now. We have been more diverse in the past, and we hope to be again in the future. The majority of advisory committee members are town meeting members. The advisory committee met 17 times to prepare for this town meeting, and subcommittees met another 20 or perhaps 30 times to hold public hearings. We met a similar number of times in the fall to prepare for November town meeting. Given that workload, it's not easy to find volunteers, so if you're interested, please let the moderator know. We have very limited authority. We give you advice, not instructions. You're free to take our advice or not. The advisory committee has been labeled conservative with both a big C and a small c, and the small c is accurate. A finance committee is supposed to be fiscally responsible about spending, and we are. At the same time, the advisory committee needs to be conscious of changes in Brookline's priorities and to provide fiscally responsible advice about how to direct spending toward those priorities. You and the people who elect you set the priorities. Just as we'd like you to listen to our financial advice, we need to listen to you. Now to the budget. We really have several pieces of the budget, plus some assortments like the golf and water and sewer prize enterprise funds, all bundled into the $365.5 million overall budget. Let's look at the major components. The fiscal 21 budget, and fiscal 21 ends on June 30th of this year, passed last June, was a result of a lot of hard work and a lot of anguish over the impact of a pandemic. This year's budget reflects just as much hard work, but perhaps less anguish than last year. We see short-term financial relief from federal aid, and we see relief in rising number of vaccinations and falling numbers of new COVID-19 cases. We're less sanguine about FY23 and beyond, but let's focus first on fiscal year 22, which starts July 1st. The FY22 budget is appropriately conservative with a small c in that it doesn't include $34.2 million Brookline will get from the American Rescue Plan. We received guidelines just last week for the use of that money, and the guidelines are still being analyzed, but they appear to provide a fair amount of flexibility. Those funds are not included in the budget because we're just getting started to learn what we can spend it on, and we'll touch on that at the end of this presentation. Now to the budget. The pandemic caused a sharp drop in local receipts starting in March 2020, well over $6 million in the 12 months ended on this June 30th. When you add in the postponement of fee increases for parking meters and trash collection that resulted from the pandemic. It's about 2%, $6 million is about 2% of the town's budget, and a 2% cut doesn't sound like much. But if you separate out the personnel costs set by collective bargaining agreements, capital projects such as schools that are already underway, debt service, and other fixed spending, such as our assessments by the state for the MBTA and the Massachusetts Water Resources assessments, 92.4% of the budget is pretty much fixed. Discretionary spending is only about 7.6% of the total budget. Most of that 6 million plus loss from COVID-19 had to be absorbed by that small slice of discretionary money. So the drop in local receipts due to COVID-19 blew away 26% of the discretionary funds we had for FY21, which was the reason for our anguish. The FY22 budget assumes that local receipts will recover, but slowly. While restaurants and hotels will be able to operate at full capacity, there may be a lingering hesitancy on the part of the public to return to their pre-pandemic levels, and the select board has not yet decided when to implement the postponed increases in parking meter and trash collection fees. The first table on page 3-34 of the combined reports shows the overall budget, including adjustments made through April 29th. Revenue is up by 4.8%, which sounds good, but part of that increase comes from overrides related to school construction, not from increases in taxes in above the 2.5% statutory rate or increases in new construction. Debt service is down because of the low interest rates, and the town's treasurer has done a very fine job refinancing our debt to take advantage of those rates. As usual, wages and employee benefits have risen. Wages account for about $167 million, or 46% of the budget, and benefits stand at slightly more than $69 million, another 18.9% of the budget. That totals to 65% of all spending. The second table on page 9-34 breaks out departmental budgets by group, with the exception of public safety, where we've broken out fire and police separately. Department budgets are nearly flat, except for recreation, whose revenue is up, partly driven, so to speak, by the popularity of the golf driving range at Putterham. Apparently, golf has been a great way to get outdoors during the pandemic, or so I'm told. So you can see the departmental budget on page 9-34, and now let's look at the school budget. Spending on education accounts for nearly 61% of the total town budget. Town meeting does not control how the schools use their funds. State law gives that authority to the school committee. Town meeting only sets the overall allocation of funds, and the largest single component of the school spending and the largest single component of our budget is the $119,870,476 allocation we're proposing for fiscal year 22. The rest of school spending is covered by other parts of the FY22 budget, including non-departmental expenses like healthcare benefits, and school building maintenance costs are included in the town's operating budget and charged back to the school. So as a result, if you add it all up, that's how we get to 61% of the total spending being allocated to the schools. The school department enters FY22 with a clouded crystal ball. School enrollment is a key driver for expenses. The current indication is that overall school enrollment starting in September, will be on the order of 6,950 students, which is about 700 students lower than pre-pandemic projections for that year. The Remote Learning Academy will be closed down at the end of this current school year, and temporary staff hired to teach in the RLA are being laid off. The Public Schools of Brookline budget has been a moving target, and the school committee's finance committee subcommittee, the school committee's finance subcommittee, not the advisory committees, but the school committees, worked very hard to eliminate a deficit that started out at $5.8 million. As noted above, the advisory committee's vote for the almost $120 million allocation was 15-0 to 11. The large number of abstentions reflected two concerns. First, the school's budget has not yet been brought into balance as of late April when we voted. It's now balanced due to that hard work by their finance subcommittee. And the final budget was published on May 11th. It's available online, and an earlier version of how town meeting's allocation would be spent is on page 9-35 of the combined reports, and there are some changes in that that the school committee made subsequent to publication. More important than the fact that the budget wasn't yet balanced, it now has been balanced. More important, we're concerned over the use of one-time funds by the schools to cover fiscal 22 operating expenses. One-time funds are dollars that will not be available in future years. The schools will be using $3.6 million from the federal 2020 CARES Act to balance their FY22 operating budget. These are listed as ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 in the table on page 9-35. One-time money should be used for expenses that will not recur on a regular basis, not for normal operating expenses, but the schools are not following that policy in FY22. We do expect that there'll be money available from the American Relief Plan for the schools specifically. We don't know how much will be available or when the funds will be received, and like the CARES Act funds being used to balance the FY22 budget, ARP aid is one-time money. Once it's gone, it won't be renewed. We're also troubled by the multi-year failure of the schools to allocate sufficient resources to maintenance of school facilities. At this point, the building department doesn't have the funds to replace broken glass or worn-out flooring. We have an enormous investment in school buildings, and the need for maintenance will become more acute as time passes if preventive maintenance is postponed further. You'll hear more about that from the advisory committee in subsequent months. The chair of the schools committee's finance committee is a realist. She understands the implications of these problems clearly, and she's already stated that difficult choices are likely to be needed next year, which is why, as I say, we're concerned about FY23. To sum up the operating budget, we expect local receipts to recover during FY22, but neither the timing nor the dimension of the recovery is assured. Moreover, in FY21, Brookline deferred expenses to cope with the loss of local revenue, and those expenses can no longer be deferred. There are many demands for new or enhanced town services, for various forms of support for affordable housing, for social services, for food aid. These new priorities need to be accommodated within a constrained budget. The capital budget is yet another piece. The details of capital spending are listed in the formal budget resolution in the combined reports. There's also a list on page 9-37 of the major items in the long-term capital improvements plan. State funding supports several of these projects, and in some cases we'll need to borrow for both state-supported projects and for others, such as the town's portion of costs to reconstruct the Pierce School. But you can see the major projects, and there are several of them, on page 9-37. American Rescue League Plan funds, let's talk about the use of those funds. We know that there will be $34.2 million in direct aid from the ARP. The eligible categories are to respond to the negative economic impacts, including assistance to households, small businesses, and nonprofits, and to aid impacted industries such as tourism, travel, and hospitality from the pandemic. To respond to certain workers providing essential work to pay certain workers additionally who are performing essential work during the public health emergency, to provide local government services that have been cut due to lost revenue, as a result of COVID-19, using 2019 as a base year, and that will help us in terms of getting back the money that was lost from local receipts, to make necessary investments in water, sewer, or broadband infrastructure. The town administrator suggested priorities for ARP funds as a plan that has equity at its core. Fund gaps, to use the money for fund gaps that are not covered elsewhere, to stabilize the operating budget, to offset the loss of local tax receipts, and to identify capital needs and priorities, which is of course related to investments in infrastructure. We have a short list of recommendations for you. We've already noted our concern that the schools are using one-time CARES Act funds to close the school budget gap. It makes sense to use ARP funds to cover gaps that are temporary. For example, the drop in local receipts, but only to the extent that the gap is pandemic related. Beyond that, we believe that the funds should be used for some combination of capital expense, achieving certain reserve goals that we are encouraged to achieve by the bond rating agencies, and starting to reduce the estimated $16 million backlog in school building maintenance and repair. Looking to FY23 and beyond, the fundamental problem highlighted by the February 2020 report of the Brookline Fiscal Advisory Committee remains. Our overall costs rise by 5 to 6%, driven largely by salary increases related to steps in grade and seniority. And our revenue before overrides increases by 3 to 4%, held in check by Proposition 2.5. This creates a recurring structural budget deficit. We urge the Select Board in particular and other public bodies addressed by the BFAC report to focus on implementing BFAC's 18 recommendations. 3 ways to close the structural gap are to cut services, which is unacceptable to most residents, to increase residential real estate taxes through repeated overrides, which is what Brookline has done for the last 2 decades, or to encourage new commercial construction to increase the commercial tax base. BFAC suggested that we spend more effort on the third option, which is a long-term solution, but the proper one from both a fiscal and a moral point of view. Increasing residential property taxes makes Brookline incrementally less affordable year by year. Perhaps the time has come to have a community-wide conversation about how much commercial construction we want, where and in what form we want it. And perhaps we could fund that work under the ARP category of infrastructure. Similarly, the matter of housing affordability is top of mind for many of us. Affordability not just for people with low income, but also for people with moderate to middle incomes who have been shut out of Brookline. And as with commercial development, we need a community conversation to determine how much housing we want and where we want it and in what form we want it. In January, the advisory committee hosted a presentation by a member of Somerville's planning department that offers an example of how to have that community conversation, and we hope to return to that example. One legacy of the 2016 election and of the president whose name must not be spoken is a highlighted or heightened awareness of both economic and racial inequality and the need for a renewed focus on the social safety net. The Biden administration seems to be focused on these issues in a way that we haven't seen since the 1960s during Lyndon Johnson's presidency. But national governments turn very slowly. Meanwhile, there's a recognition of the need in our own community for more social services at a local level, including food aid, expanded mental health services, and support for improving the stock of affordable housing. Responding to these needs will have a cost, but we also recognize and respect the changing priorities of Brookline's residents. Those priorities expressed through town meeting and informed by the advisory committee's commitment to fiscal responsibility will hopefully guide us all. And last, as an example of our changing priorities and how we're responding, the budget sets aside $95,295 to begin the process of how to implement a recommendation of the Task Force on Reimagining Policing. The recommendation was that Brookline consolidate its social services under a single department and expand those services. The select board version of the budget allows the funds to be used, that $95,000 to be used for either services or salary, but the advisory committee earmarks the funds for services, anticipating that the town administrator will retain a consultant to provide advice on how to move forward before staff is hired. The advisory committee asks that you vote for its version, since the select board can return to the advisory committee and request a change in the allocation once the town administrator has a consultant's recommendation from which to work. Most important, this move towards consolidating and expanding Brookline social services is an important step towards greater equity, and I'm very pleased to see those funds included in the budget, however they may be earmarked. By a vote of 26-0 with no abstentions, the advisory committee submits the FY22 budget plan with a recommendation of favorable action on the motion printed on pages 9-54 to 9-63 in the combined reports as amended. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Salmon. In 1 second, we will turn to Chair Hamilton. Before we do that, I want to acknowledge that, yes, I let Mr. Salmon go over his 15 minutes, but I thought the subject was important enough to warrant that. Second, we have multiple people lined up to ask questions. However, there will be an opportunity later in the budget discussion for all of these questions related to departmental and budget expenditures to be discussed. So we are going to hold off on accepting any questions until that time. Chair Hamilton.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Heather Hamilton speaking for a unanimous select board. You've just heard a pretty detailed and in-depth description of the proposed fiscal year 22 budget. I'd like to take this opportunity to focus less on the intricate details of local receipts and reserve funds and talk about overall themes that we as a town and as a select board are working on or working towards. But first, some acknowledgements. Congratulations to the newest select board member, Miriam Ashkenazi, and to Bernard Green on his re-election to the select board. Congratulations to David Perlman and Jennifer Monopoly on their re-election to school committee. And congratulations to the newest members of the school committee, Steve Ehrenberg and Dimitri Ansel. A special congratulations to new town moderator, Kate Poverman, and to new town clerk, Ben Kaufman. This election season was very contested and very exciting. Thank you to town clerk, Pat Ward, town moderator, Sandy Gadsby, and former select board member, Nancy Heller, for their decades of service to this town. Thank you to our town administrator and his staff, ably led by Melissa Goff, Justin Casanova Davis, Devin Fields, Tiffany Souza, and Kate McGilvery. I want to acknowledge the department heads who worked under incredibly challenging conditions over this past year and did a fantastic job. Finally, I want to acknowledge the advisory committee for their review of warrant articles and the budget. Thank you. A thank you to all town staff who continue to come into work every day and provide public service. Thank you to the town clerk's office who helped us execute a smooth and safe election. I feel incredibly lucky to live in this community. A big thank you to Brookline Interactive Group, who have allowed us to broadcast our meetings to the general public. Thank you to everyone who has participated remotely in one of our hundreds of remote meetings over this historic time. I would also like to take this opportunity to recognize new department and division heads. Welcome, Department of Public Works Commissioner Aaron Galentine. Welcome, Chief Information Officer Fang Yang. Welcome, Chief Assessor Rashid Bel-Hossein. Welcome, Deputy Building Commissioner Paul Campbell. Welcome, Supervisor of Services for Council on Aging Julie Washburn. Welcome, Parks and Open Space Director Alexandra Vecchio. Welcome, Director of Engineering and Transportation Robert King. Welcome, Assistant Director Chief Sanitation Roland Lenka. Welcome, Assistant Director for Sustainability Planning Tom Barrasso. Welcome, Director of Golf Justin Lawson. A special thank you to Interim Superintendent of Schools Jim Marini and outgoing Deputy Superintendent for Administration and Finance Mary Ellen Norman. Your service was invaluable during your tenures. Now to the actual budget stuff. Fiscal year 22 could have been a lot worse. We are starting to see light at the end of this very long tunnel. This past year has brought many challenges, and not just related to the virus. It has illuminated many structural deficits in our society: racial inequality, gender inequality, socioeconomic inequality. We have not been able to celebrate the good times, and we have not been able to grieve the bad times. Food insecurity is at an all-time high. Mental health is a crisis for nearly everyone. including children. And we still don't know how many of our local businesses will survive. COVID-19 ravaged our local budgets last year. We estimate that Brookline lost nearly 30% of our local receipts revenue. However, this year, thanks in large part to a large infusion of cash from the American Rescue Plan, we are not facing the same dire situation we faced last year. However, at some point over the next few years, we will most likely need another operational override and a debt exclusion for renovations for our firehouses and the Pierce School. This is coming. There is still a fair amount of uncertainty surrounding what we can use the American Rescue Plan funds for and when we will begin to see it, as Mike Salmon just alluded to. We must be patient. It is important to recognize that this is one-time money as we figure out how it can address the impacts of pandemic and the town's priorities. We are committed to a community process and hope that you all will help us figure out how to spend this money in a manner that is fair, equitable, and helps the most people. On May 25th, 2020, George Floyd stopped breathing and the world gasped. Here in Brookline, we constituted two separate committees, one on policing reform, chaired by Select Board member Bernard Green, and one on reimagining policing, chaired by Select Board member Raul Fernandez. These two committees have met numerous times over the past year and developed a comprehensive set of recommendations that the Select Board is reviewing and voting on. Until this policy direction is clarified, we have held off initiating a search for a new chief of police. It is my hope that we will start that search this summer and have a new chief of police by the end of the calendar year. One of the recommendations made by the Task Force for Reimagining Policing revolves around creating a structure to better coordinate our health and human service functions. The Select Board's budget directs the town administrator to hire a part-time employee and engage with a consultant that would start to develop a plan aimed at this goal. This is one key difference between the AC's budget and the budget recommended by the Select Board. Lots more to come as the Select Board continues to grapple with the recommendations from these two committees. I would also like to give a brief update on the school capital projects we currently have going on around town. Brookline High School is nearly complete. The STEM Academy is projected to open this summer, and 22 Tappan will open by the end of the year. Next school year, 9th graders will start at Old Lincoln and move over to 22 Tappan in the middle of the school year. Tappan Gym has started demolition and it will open by the end of this year. It has been a challenging project involving many stakeholders, including the MBTA and the Parks and Recreation Commission. However, despite the challenges, it provided many opportunities for synergy. A special thank you to our state representative, Tommy Vitolo, for his work behind the scenes to help us deal with the MBTA. The Driscoll project has been a long road. We have retooled the design based on lots of community input. We were disappointed when the construction bids came back high, and we have worked with our project team to revise our specifications in order to rebid the work. We are committed to keeping this project within the budget agreed to by town meeting and the voters of Brookline. Decisions will be made before the beginning of next school year, so stay tuned. As you know, the Pierce School was admitted to the MSBA funding program, and the building committee has been meeting. The current track for that debt exclusion to fund the project will appear before voters sometime in 2023. Shifting gears, I would like to talk to you about planning efforts and housing. As many of you know, the town is subject to Chapter 40B state law, which allows developers to exceed zoning limits if 10% of our year-round housing stock is not listed on the state's subsidized housing index, which is commonly referred to as the SHI. Our SHI is currently unofficially at 9.9%. For various technical reasons, it is fluctuating and may continue to do so for a while. We are committed to continuing our efforts to increase the amount of diversity of housing, regardless of our SHI status. Last year, when the town was briefly above the 10%, the Zoning Board of Appeals did not deny a comprehensive permit application despite being allowed to do so. I applaud this commitment to reviewing all affordable housing applications on their merits to provide this much needed housing inventory. Toward that end, the Planning Department, in conjunction with the Housing Advisory Board and with the support of the Select Board, is in the process of engaging a consultant to prepare an expanded update to our housing production plan, which is referred to as the HPP. The HPP will make it possible for the town to potentially access an additional safe harbor from comprehensive permits, and more importantly, provide a strategic plan with implementation strategies for expanding both the amount and diversity of market and particularly affordable housing in Brookline. A request for proposals, RFP, to develop a housing production plan was released last month. The RFP outlines an exhaustive study that will incorporate extensive and inclusive public engagement to help inform the final plan. The town has received one response to that RFP, which is being actively evaluated. The town is engaged in other planning initiatives to expand the housing supply, most notably the multi-family housing study, which will serve as a foundation for future studies, projects, and zoning reform. This project, being undertaken by Planning Department staff, is focused on understanding how our dimensional controls within our zoning bylaw interact to define, guide, or inhibit housing development. The results of the multifamily housing study will be incorporated into the HPP. Additionally, the Planning Department is exploring opportunities to provide increased mixed-use opportunities with specific corridors or areas. Staff is currently focused on Lower Boylston Street, chaired by Select Board member John Van Scoyac, to be followed by Chestnut Hill, Route 9 West, and then Beacon and Harvard Streets. Finally, there is one last thing on my mind and on the mind of many members of our community, including my fellow Select Board members. This is the recent decision by the U.S. Court of Appeals and Supreme Judicial Court involving Gerald Alston. This board is committed to engaging in a respectful dialogue with Mr. Alston and with engaging in its very best efforts to reach a settlement through mediation. I hope we can begin that process this summer and provide a conclusion to all parties. This is a new day, a new board, and the time is right. Without further ado, please vote favorable action on the Select Board's amendment to the AC's budget motion found in the orange supplement on page 2. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Hamilton. We will now hear from Dr. Marini relating to the school budget. For 15 minutes, Marini.
There we go. Okay, thank you. Yeah, is it possible to have the slides shown on the screen?
Our tech people are addressing this as we sit here.
Thank you, Madam Moderator, and thank you to the town meeting to be able to present. Mr. Sandman did a rather terrific job in summarizing the budget, so I'm going to give the highlights. But before I begin, I think I'd be remiss if I didn't take a minute to acknowledge Mary Ellen Norman myself. Ms. Hamilton did a great job, but I want to recognize Mary Ellen, who has done yeoman's work in the Office of Administration and Finance at the school department. She has led the district through a number of different budgets, and she has deep knowledge about all areas of the operations of the school system, and is really instrumental. So she's a go-to person, and her expertise and knowledge will be missed, and Brookline will miss her. I personally owe a debt of gratitude for the work that she's done this year, helping me get up to speed as quickly as I could. So thank you. I also want to thank Mariah Nobrega, the chair of the finance subcommittee of the school committee, who really working very closely with the school department and helping us not only with communications, but keeping us focused on priorities. Developing this budget was truly a joint effort, and it was a team effort, and really very happy about that. I suppose I should just say next slide. So when I say next slide, please. Whenever we develop this budget, we stay focused on our mission. And as we develop the budget, we continually say to ourselves, this is about students. This is about students. Our mission is to ensure that every student develops the skills and knowledge to pursue a productive and fulfilling life, to participate thoughtfully in a democracy and succeed in a diverse and evolving global society. That's why we do the work. We're focused on the students, and we do not want to lose sight of that. Next slide, please. To that end, we're going to start and end with the focus on students. It's interesting to look at this slide. The picture on your left is the high school science class with social distancing. It almost looks like something out of a different century. But here we have these students, and on the right, we have preschool students virtually shaking hands with their little hand paddles to adjust to what's been going on in their lives as well. Next slide, please. So I'm going to go through the FY21 budget because in some ways it informs the 22. Our enrollment, which was alluded to a minute ago, and it's a significant issue for us, the FY22 budget, and then touch on the construction projects that are happening. Next slide, please. Actually, you can go through two. We're going to go to the FY21 budget. Thank you. Well, this certainly has been an interesting and challenging year, to say the least. And the pandemic presented us with challenges that really tested all of us. While we stayed focused on keeping students and staff safe, while continuing to deal with this uncertainty all year long. As we dealt with these daunting challenges, there were significant costs that we incurred. And we had to create a remote learning academy, over 600 students, which means that we had to hire a number of teachers in order to staff what essentially turned out to be a 9th school. We needed technology to support that additional school. So that was a cost we had to incur as well. So that kids in the remote setting or in a hybrid setting would be able to access their learning. We had to reduce class size for those students in the hybrid so we can maintain the social distancing. Reducing class size required that we hire more teachers and find additional space, which had operations costs to it. The ventilation, Brookline probably has the best ventilated schools in Massachusetts, and I don't mean that in a facetious way, I really mean that. The work done with, as you well know, some of our expert panels are truly international experts on ventilation, and we enhanced the ventilation systems in all of our schools, and we improved the airflow, which has long-term benefits, even though it happened during the pandemic. We had to enhance personal protective equipment, gowns, face shields, masks, gloves on a continuous basis. Furniture, some of the furniture only allowed for students to sit 2 at a table because they were tables, which didn't allow for any of the distancing. So in many of the classrooms, we had to switch out furniture to individual desks that could be separated out and allow for the instruction. And there were other costs as well in terms of tents and that sort of thing. Collectively, those costs exceeded $6.8 million. And the expense was only partially met through federal relief funding. We totaled about $5.5 million in relief, leaving approximately $1.3 million in a gap. So currently we have a request from the reserve fund of a transfer for $1.3 million to close that gap. But continuing school during this year was a challenge, and it was only possible, truly only possible, through the collaborative work of the Town School Partnership, a terrific group that gave direction, helped clarify thinking, and asked to redirect thinking on occasion, and then were very supportive in the efforts we're trying to accomplish. The expert advisory panels, there were 4 of them, that contributed to the school system in just in ways that are difficult to quantify. You can't quantify. They were a gift to the schools because they were a resource where we could get information and advice that was really grounded. Made up unbelievable volunteers who were very busy in their own lives, yet giving their time to help the schools. And of course, the ongoing and tireless effort of the staff in the public schools, the teachers, the administrators, the paras, the support staff, the secretaries, the food service, you name it, the custodians, everyone across the system worked extremely hard. We would not have been able to pull it together without the efforts of those people. The next slide, please. Yeah, and then I'm going to go to the enrollment. This is an interesting one now. As we looked at building the budget, the enrollment is really a significant issue. In Massachusetts, enrollments fell by about 4%, but in Brookline, the enrollment fell approximately 11%. The factors that fed into that are the international students didn't arrive for obvious reasons, and there were many that withdrew and went to private school. And it's unclear at this point whether those trends are going to change. We actually sent out surveys to students who have left the system to ask if they were going to return, what their plans were with their families, and we use that information to help build the budget. Now this is a difficult situation. If you look at this slide, the graphic, you'll see in the blue, those are the actual enrollments. You'll see that the enrollment was growing at a relatively steady basis and then dropped precipitously this year. You see in the yellow on the far right, that's the forecast that came from the consultant that does the forecasting enrollment projections here in Brookline. And looking at the trends, the projection was we were going to have 7,600 students in the system. But as it stands right now, we have about 6,500 students because the enrollment this year went down about 800, but then it began to trickle, still going down as well. But that yellow, that light beige yellow, that's a cone of uncertainty. And that's a serious cone of uncertainty because international students, as the pandemic improves across the world, are those international students going to return? We have a level of confidence that some will. And will students return from private school or from home instruction? We're not certain about that. So the dilemma or the challenge for the school department is to try to build a program based on students that we have and yet plan for students that we may have, but we really can't build a budget on what we think. We have to build a budget on what we know. So that was the constant, and it still is a constant sort of best guess forecast for us. So if you go to the next slide, this is what we did. The enrollment, just so we can see where it centers, the enrollment primarily, the drop in enrollment is primarily a K-8 issue. You can see going across that the high school, if you look at that subtotal, at the bottom going, not the bottom, one above where it says 9 through 12. And you go, if you look at the fall of FY19, there are 2,064. This past year, the fall of 2020, enrollment dropped. But for FY22, the fall of 21, it's pretty flat to where it was 2 years ago, essentially. So the high school, we think pretty much stays where it is, went down a little bit, but we think it's going to be about where it is. The K-8 school, on the other hand, has dropped, and you can see it's about 1,000 students from where it was in the fall of 19. So we have built our program based on the students that we have, but we need to allow some flexibility. We built it with class size average of 19, and the 19 is a good number in a class, but it allows for growth. And it's across the district, but it allows for growth.
Hi, town meeting.
I'm sorry? We're also building a teacher reserve for possible additional growth. So building for the students that we have, we can go to the next slide. Can you go to the next slide, please? Oh, you know what I should do? I should do this. Sorry about that. So was that the next slide? Yeah. Okay. So yeah, thank you. So as we started building the budget, we asked the school committee, which is historic, for guidelines. These are some of the key guidelines we're operating on to build a budget. We're going to go to the new normal. We're not going to have a remote learning academy next year. And we have to fund after school activities. That's a sports program, drama programs, and extracurricular activities. Those need to be funded. They weren't funded fully this year. That funding needs to return. School committee asked that we align the budget to support high quality curriculum initiatives. So we wouldn't be making reductions in those programs. And also to ensure the breadth of program exists in the system for the students, art, music, PE, world language, libraries. We want to make certain that we provide students with that breadth of programs for well-rounded education. We have that in all 8 of the K-8 schools, high school as well. The staff school committee said to support the efforts regarding staff diversity, equity, and inclusion, and be very strategic in the way that we have to deal with some of the reductions, to support the robust and aligned professional development for educators, continuous learning to keep, Brookline is known for having outstanding teachers. We need to support teachers so that we continue to grow and learn and expand our skills. District-wide, we have funding for a strategic plan. And that's important because over the last number of years, there's been a lot of change in leadership at the in the school department, and changes in superintendent, changes in central office administrators, senior leaders, changes in principal leads to an inconsistency in carrying out goals and initiatives going forward. It's time for the system to look at developing a strategic plan going forward to refocus its energies. We need sufficient funding in the Office of Teaching and Learning and the Office of Administration and Finance. School committee asked that we restore some positions that were temporarily suspended, but we need to return those and put the infrastructure in place that supports teaching and learning at the heart and soul of the system, to support students and teachers in that area, and the Office of Administration and Finance to support the development of financial reports to monitor and track the budgets in ways that we didn't have the capacity to do before. We have to meet all contractual obligations, the school committee said. They also, as a guideline, want to make certain that we are meeting our special education obligations with students who require services. And we need to support the social and emotional needs of students, particularly this post-pandemic time. This is an extraordinary time, and we have extraordinary needs there. And along with that, to examine summer program opportunities for students, particularly after this year. Thank you. Next slide. So,
Dr. Marini, you've technically run out of time, but I'm happy to give you more time. You think maybe 5 more minutes?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I'll go as fast as I can.
Okay.
All right. But I want to give some highlights here that here's what this is the slide I thought was coming next, and that was my fault. But nevertheless, the highlights are, because of reduction in enrollment, a direct correlation there, that we're reducing our staffing by approximately 26 FTEs, full-time equivalent teachers. We're going to add 9 social workers and a director of guidance and clinical service to meet the social emotional needs. We're going to implement a universal summer school program without cost to the students. We're going to expand our summer literacy program in grades K-2 and 3-5. We're going to add that budget analyst I referenced a minute ago, and that actually was recommended by the advisory council. We're going to add custodians. Ms. Hamilton talked about the new construction piece, that The high school is going to have 80,000 square feet. That's a heck of an investment that the community has made. We need to maintain that investment. 2.5 custodians will need to do that. And we're going to restructure supplies and professional development. Over the years, we've been reducing these areas to the point that we have inadequate resources for our classrooms and for professional development. So we are restoring those budgets. Next, please. Okay, so the revenues that were spoken to a minute ago, and this is important. As you can see, the 119,870,476 is the allocation for the schools, and you'll see that 471 just off to the right. That the school department, the school committee voted to divert $471,000 of its 120 allocation to the building department. The building department services the buildings, does maintenance, and has additions where necessary, and keeps the system, keep the schools running in tip-top shape. We need to support them to the extent that we can. The school committee voted to move that money for the public buildings. And then you see the ESSER funds, ESSER 2 and ESSER 3, to the tune of about $5 million. The ARP, the rescue plan, as Mr. Sandman said, has not been determined on how that's going to be spent. We don't include that in our budget for obvious reasons. Circuit breaker, the reimbursement from the state, and then tuitions. But what's important here is the school committee is keenly aware that it is using one-time funds to balance the FY22 budget, and that this is unsustainable. School committee has had this discussion, but to close the gap between revenues and expenses in the future is either going to require adjustments to the program, cuts, reductions, or increase in recurring revenues. The committee is aware of it, and we want to make certain that we highlight that that piece is not going unnoticed. We know it, and we want to acknowledge it. Thank you. Next. This is the allocation of how the money is being spent. No surprise to people. Schools are a people business. 85% or so of the revenue is going to salaries. And then the rest contracted services, basically special education and others, supplies, other charges, utilities, much less money. It's a people business. That's why there's so much in the personnel. All right, thank you. Yeah, let's keep going. This is, okay, so I'm done in 2 minutes, Madam Moderator. I just want to take a quick look at this. This has obviously 4 images here. The top images are renditions. The bottom images are what is current. It's what you see right now. So on the left, you see at the top image at the Tappan building, you know, on Cypress Street, that's the cafeteria. That's a rendition of the cafeteria. The picture below is what it looks like today. That's where it is today, and that's what it's going to look like when it's completed. The building to the right, you see the STEM wing, which is on Greeno Street, the rendition at top, and what it looks like right now. It's nearly complete, as I think was mentioned a few minutes ago. Very exciting, really. This is an exciting investment by the town of Brookline in its and to provide students with state-of-the-art facilities. Can we go to the next one, please? Yep, this is the Driscoll project. This is the rendition, the drawing that we have here. What's important, I think, here is in that light blue circle, or square actually, just to highlight that as a result of the work that's going to happen, there's going to be an increase in the usable open space, which is really a gift, about 17,000 square feet of additional open space for the community and for the schools. Just, it's great to see that. And the last, and it's not the last slide, but it's the next slide is Pierce. Pierce is obviously underway, and the town has selected architects, you know, Miller, Dyer, and Spears, partnering with Sasaski. They're a design team. This spring, they've been working in the buildings with the administrators and with the committees to identify educational needs so they can build a school building that meets the educational needs. And next spring, the town's going to be asked to vote for an override. MSBA is involved with this project, as had been noticed. If you can just hold it there for 1 second, I just want to say, just bear with me, Madam Moderator, for just another minute. I just really want to say that I don't think certainly I have not ever been involved in anything like the pandemic in my career. And look at me, I've had a long career. And this has been an extremely challenging year. But I have to say, it has been really a pleasure to be in Brookline when we're dealing with very supportive parents. Granted, everybody wants to have an opinion, they have an opinion. I got that. But they've been very supportive in terms of the parents. The school committee has been encouraging, providing guidance, providing feedback, and encouragement the whole time through. And working with the expert panels has been a distinctive part of my experience. And I talk with other superintendents, and when I can get my guidance from the expert panels, it makes a difference. And so this budget really is coming together in a way that it ensures that schools are going to be well resourced with supplies and materials. It ensures that social emotional supports are in place for students. It ensures that staffing levels meet projected enrollments. And it also restores some of those central office positions to better support the schools and the financial aspects of the schools. Schools are set up, ready to go. And what's really, I think, exciting is that instead of all this turnover and all the change in administration that's going on, Brookline has an outstanding person coming in who's going to serve as superintendent of schools. Can we go to the next slide, please? Dr. Linus Guillory. Dr. Linus Guillory is outstanding. He and I have been in constant communication. He's looking forward to coming to Brookline. He has the values, he has the instincts, he has the background and the knowledge and the spirit to take this system where it needs to go with reliability, dependability, consistency, and I think a love of education that is unsurpassed. I love working with Dr. Guillory. I can't wait to see all the great things he's going to do here. Can we go to the next slide? Thank you. So we started with students, we're going to end with students. Look at these little guys. They're all out there having a ball because this is what it's all about. Next slide. Thank you very much to Brookline, and thank you for all that you do to help these young people grow and develop in an environment that really values who they are as individuals. And I hope that if you need more information, by the way, in the backup slides and the backup material you received earlier, there's much more detail that you can reference. Thank you, Madam Moderator. Sorry, I went a little long.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Marini, and thank you for all your incredible services and help during this incredibly tumultuous year. All right, we are now ready to consider the budget itself. We will start with what is called the conditions of appropriation, numbered paragraphs 1 through 12 on pages 9-55 to the middle of page 9-59, if you want to take a look at those. These are the rules that govern matters such as the transfers of appropriations from one account to another and various revolving funds. I will now take questions and comments on those conditions of appropriation, and please communicate with the chat monitor in order to be recognized throughout this budget debate. Are there any questions or comments specifically on the conditions of appropriation? I know we have a lot of people waiting to talk about the budget, other issues of it. Okay. Since there are no comments, we will now proceed to paragraph 13 of the budget, which consists of all of the special capital appropriations contained in the budget. These are set forth in a series of paragraphs on pages 59, 9-59 to 9-62, within paragraphs number 13. Within paragraph number 13, and the subparagraphs are numbered 36 through 59. A more detailed explanation of each of these appropriations will be found in a series of similarly numbered paragraphs on pages 9-40 to 9-50. Anyone who has a question about a particular capital expenditure should first check and see if the answer is in the enlarged description of the expenditure in the pages I just cited. I will, however, go through and read the amount and subject of each of these appropriations, and you should send a message to the chat monitor if you wish to address an item. From whom? Oh, okay, yes, Ms. Frawley. Ms. Frawley, what is your
Good
question?
evening. Regina Frawley, Precinct 16. Yes, I was looking at the stipends and salary writing here, and it says that the town clerk will shall pay all fees received by
Ms.
the
Frawley,
clerk.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but you will have a chance to question particular items on the budget in a minute, not.
Oh, that's what I thought I was doing. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's all right. Okay. Now, we are going through the special appropriations that start on page 9-59, paragraph 13. The appropriations that are set forth as items 35 through 69 inclusive, and also in table 1 of the supplemental material, shall be specially appropriated for the following purposes. In addition, with the exception of items 64 through 69, which we will discuss, they shall be transferred from the general fund to the revenue financed capital fund. So the appropriated sums are as follows. First, to raise and appropriate $130,000 to replace the town's voting machines. A more full description of this is on page 9-40. Appropriation 37, to raise and appropriate $900,000 to upgrade and replace the police and fire department's radio infrastructure. You can check again at 9-40 for more information about this. 38, to raise and appropriate $140,000 for parking meter technology upgrades. Again, a more complete description is on page 9-40. Item 39, to raise and appropriate $140,000 for studies related to the upgrade of the traffic signal at the Washington/Harvard/Kent/Davis intersection. Page 9/41 has more details about this. 40, to raise and appropriate $50,000 for accessible pedestrian signal conversions. Okay, Ms. Zimmerman, which particular item do you have a question about? Item 40, the accessible pedestrian signal conversions.
Yeah, I just had a quick question on this. Are we looking, Amanda Zimmerman, town meeting member, precinct 7. Are we looking to extend what has happened during COVID in that we don't need to press the pedestrian walk signals? Because as an accessibility issue, I think it would be very beneficial, especially in snow, to not have to reach the buttons to engage them.
Aaron Galentine will be addressing that. Thank you.
Good evening, Erin Galentine, Commissioner of Public Works. I would invite Madam Moderator Todd Corrine, our Transportation Administrator, to address this. He has been discussing this issue with the Transportation Board.
Is Mr. Corrine available?
He is.
Yep. Madam Moderator, Todd Corrine, Transportation Administrator for the town of Brookline. So the Transportation Board will actually be addressing this at their June meeting. They had an initial conversation in April on whether to continue the recall. So all pedestrian signal comes up with every with every cycle. So in June, the Transportation Board will be discussing this, and we invite all town meeting members to participate in that meeting.
Do you have any further questions, Ms. Zimmerman? No. Okay. Then we move on to item number 41, which is to raise and appropriate $2,072,224 for the rehabilitation of streets, more fully described on page 9-42. 42. Okay, Mr. Rosenthal, what is your question?
It's not a question, but I have to speak on behalf of everyone in the Columbia, Russell, Kenwood, and Verndale area to thank the town, DPW, for finally getting to Columbia Street.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenthal.
Been driving us crazy. Thank you.
Appreciate that comment. Okay, and now we move over. Recognize Ms. Gilman.
Turn the volume down, Don.
Can you identify yourself, please, Ms. Gilman?
Is it off?
We can hear you. No, can you, there you go.
Good evening. Am I recognized?
Yes, you are.
No, I'm not recognized.
Yes, Ms. Gilman, please identify yourself.
I am. I'm not recognized.
Turn your volume up. Turn it up. Ms. Gilman, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Madam Moderator, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Moderator. Jane Gilman, Precinct 3. It's a pleasure to see a woman at the podium. I'm very grateful for your presence. I have a question about the sidewalk rehabilitation and construction. I'd like to know if any of the sidewalks will be replaced with pervious surfaces such that water can return to the aquifer, and also whether there's any consideration of widening the sidewalks. In many places, they are really too narrow for people with baby carriages, walkers, or even to walk two abreast. Thank you.
Mr. Corain, is that still in your bailiwick? No, okay, back to Ms. Galantine, yes. Galantine, apparently, thank you.
There we go. Good evening, Erin Galantine. Thank you for that question. So the sidewalks themselves, we are not planning porous materials at this point in time. The town standard is concrete for replacement sidewalks. However, we are contemplating widening the sidewalks, and we evaluate that with every roadway rehabilitation project that goes through the complete street assessment to make sure that we have that the sidewalks are accessible. We're looking at multimodal improvements, and overall, in terms of our public way, we are looking at increasing our tree planting and green infrastructure. So we do hope that we can add more porosity in the public way, but we'll be looking at sort of targeting areas where we can do that with strategic stormwater management.
Thank you. Okay, item 43 seeks to raise and appropriate $600,000 for the Washington Street Rehabilitation and Complete Streets project. The details are on 9-43. Okay, I recognize Melissa Voigt, VOGT.
Hi, my name is Marissa Vogt. I'm a town meeting member from Precinct 4. I'm sorry that I got a bit delayed, but I had a question about item 36, the voting machines. I was just wondering if these voting machines would be capable of handling ranked choice voting. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to throw that out to the town clerk. Are you able?
Yeah. Thank you, Ben Kaufman, town clerk. Yes, the new voting machines will be compatible for ranked choice voting. It's a software upgrade that would be expected to cost around $6,000 per year. The cost will vary based on what type of ranked choice voting we use, but other communities that use the same voting machines, including Cambridge, already have ranked choice voting, and they have that capability to do the software upgrade if it becomes necessary.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Priestley, what is your question?
Hi. Oh, sorry. Hi, Vina Priestley, Precinct 4. I had a quick question with the sidewalks. I noticed here on Boylston Street that they have added bike lanes on the actual sidewalk to the left of them. Are they planning on doing that with the new sidewalks that they're, fixing up?
Ms. Galantine?
Good evening. So we do look at raised cycle tracks and protected bike lanes as we can with our roadway renovations. The roads are certainly not wide enough to do that in every circumstance, nor do we have the funding necessarily to do that. But as part of the Washington Street Rehab and Complete Streets project, we will be taking a very hard look at how we can make improved safe bicycle accommodations.
Okay, we will now move on to item number 44, which seeks to raise and appropriate $400,000 for stormwater improvements. The detail. I didn't understand you. Mr. Richmond, what is your question?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Clint Richmond, Precinct 6. Just a quick question on this. I was wondering what pollutants are, what are the target pollutants of this effort in item 44? Thank you.
Ms. Galantine, is that your, are you the one to answer this for us?
The target pollutant is phosphorus as part of our stormwater management mitigation and also compliance with our MS4 permit, although we will be designing these to try to capture a whole host of pollutants and improve the water quality going to our water resources, such as the Muddy River.
Thank you. The next item is to raise and appropriate $280,000 for water meter transmission units replacements and to meet an appropriation from the retained earnings of the Water and Sewer Fund. More details are located on page 9-44. Item 46 is to raise and appropriate $280,000 for Willow Pond environmental restoration. Details are on page 9-44. Mr. Davis, Jonathan Davis.
Thank you, Ms. Moderator. Jonathan Davis, Precinct 10. May I have 3 minutes?
No, you may ask a question. You may not orate.
Oh, no comments. I'm sorry, I may not. Could you repeat that, please?
You may not give a speech. You may ask a question. So a question would not take 3 minutes.
Okay. I would like to know if it is possible for the Commissioner of Public Works, the Brookline Housing Authority, and the Select Board, with some goodwill and creativity, to figure out a way to shift $140,000, which is half of the $280,000 in Special Appropriation 46, shifted away from Willow Road over to the Boston Housing Authority for Wi-Fi improvement, which is
Okay, I'm
the
sorry,
dollar
that
amount,
really is outside
$140,000 that has been
Mr. Davis,
estimated.
I'm sorry, Mr. Davis, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that really is not germane to the issue we are discussing now. You may have the opportunity to address it later on, but it is not appropriate now. You might want to save it, say, for the special town meeting or something like that. But right now, if you have any questions specifically about Willow Pond, you may ask that.
No.
Okay, thank you very much. Number 47 is to raise and appropriate $260,000 for the renovation of playground equipment, fields, and fencing. The details of this are found on page 9-46. Number 48 is to raise and appropriate $165,000 for the rehabilitation of the town and school grounds. Details on that are found on page 9-46. Item 49 is to raise and appropriate $482,224 in order to remove and replace trees. Details on that are found on page 9-46. Item 50 is to raise and appropriate $85,000 for ADA renovations to town and school facilities. That's under the Americans with Disabilities Act. The details. Item 48. Let me just finish saying this. The details about number 50 and the ADA renovations can be found on page 9-47. Now, Ms. Schweitzer, what is your question?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Naomi Schweitzer, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 10. I'm asking a question about item 48, and my question is, given that it appears the Pierce override is a ways off now, and we're going to be multiple years before we're going to have a new facility there, if this line item is going to cover the repairs to the multiple sets of crumbling and dangerous external stairs coming from School Street and Harvard Street leading up to our part of the Pierce campus. Thank you.
Thank you. Relating to school budget, would that be Dr. Marini or Erin Galentine? Back to you. Sorry, you're very popular tonight.
Thank you. Yes, depending on the time frame, we would want to work with the building department and the school department to do repairs and patching on those stairs to make them safe until such time as the school is under full renovation.
Okay, thank you. The next item is number 51, to raise and appropriate $165,000 for energy conservation projects in town and school facilities. More details on that are found on page 9-47. Number 52 is to raise and appropriate $175,000 for improvements to the fire alarm systems in town and school facilities. More details are found on page 9-47. Mr. Selwyn, what is your question? Lee, L-E-E. Yeah.
I need to be unmuted. Am I unmuted now?
Yes.
Madam Moderator, Lee Selwyn, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 13. A number of these items are identified as town and school. Is it possible to get a breakdown for each of the ones that are so identified as between town and school?
Ms. Galentine, I'm going to ask you if you can address this.
So for the town and school grounds, that's variable each year. So when we're looking at curbing, stairs, railings, the bulk of that work actually does go outside the envelope of the school grounds and all of those access points. But we also use some of that funding for the town hall grounds, for libraries. So it's not the parks and open spaces, it's the other civic sites and buildings. So there isn't a set amount each year. It's really based on condition and need.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Richmond? What is your question?
Yes, thank you. Clint Richmond, Precinct 6. Regarding item 51, I saw there was some reference to LED lighting. We don't have the lighting plan in front of us, and we've done a very good job with dark skies compliance on our street lighting, but I just wanted to confirm that we are, using those same principles with all our campus lighting as well as the street lighting. And because there are some areas, particularly in the sort of that town hall center area, that are not dark skies compliant today. I don't know if those are the ones being replaced or not.
Ms. Galantine? I'm sorry? Oh, the last name is Simmons. I did not hear the first one. Charlie Simmons, could you please answer this question?
Yes, those monies are actually used for interior spaces, interior rooms and offices, not outside on the streets or sidewalks.
Okay, thank you. Item 53 is to raise and appropriate $170,000 for improvements to life safety systems and building security in town and school facilities. Additional information about this can be found on page 9-48. Yes, Ms. Gilman.
Jane Gilman, Precinct 3. I wanted to, I want to clarify item 54 as an example, and 48, 54. I'm confused about, maybe this is a follow-up to Mr. Selwyn's question. I'm confused about items that the town pays for out of our budget, whereas we are already giving the school 61% of our budget. So I wonder if someone could clarify these items in the budget here that pertain to schools. Thank you.
Ms. Galantine, would you like to answer this or recommend somebody who could?
I think it's probably an overall budget question, but I certainly can speak to the level of support that the Department of Public Works provides for all of our public assets townwide. So the Parks and Open Space Division manages all the parks, playgrounds, town grounds, and school grounds. They provide design, development, maintenance, and management oversight. And so, we have a system, we have some contractual services, we have in-house staff that we actually support the school grounds, the park grounds, all the grounds in terms of maintenance and management. Our operating budget supports the schools, and also we have items in the capital budget for those larger repairs that also support the school grounds. Each year, we identify all of the costs specific to the school grounds across all categories, and then submit that to our deputy town administrator, and that's compiled with other I think town functions that are also supporting the schools. So I guess just from an operating standpoint, I can say that we do compile those costs kind of across all DPW functions each year and submit those.
Mike Sandman, could you please, apparently you can elucidate some of these issues, so we turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Mike Sandman, Advisory Committee Chair and Town Meeting Member, Precinct 3. The short answer is that really all the departments do what the DPW does if they're providing support to the schools. And that 61% that I quoted, or 60% that I quoted earlier in my budget presentation, wraps all of those expenses together. They're all consolidated. That's how you get to 60%. We are allocating almost $120 million to the schools, but the other items combined with that $120 million add up to the 60%. So it's being properly accounted and essentially charged back to the schools when we figure out where the money is going.
Thank you very much. Item 54 on the capital appropriations. What we're talking about. Special appropriations is to raise and appropriate $1,738,600 to expand classroom capacity in the various schools. And the details of that are found on page 9-48. Now we are going to shift the speeds a little bit because the next items, unlike the ones we just discussed and which will come afterwards, are items that need to be bonded and have to be voted on separately with a 2/3 majority. So I will go through each of these. I think there are approximately 5 items individually, and we will vote on them each as they have been discussed. Number 55 is to appropriate $2 million for water system improvements, which is to be bonded under general law, Chapter 44, Section 855. There are more details about this on page 9-50. Just proceed to the vote. Okay. So, okay. We will now take a vote on item 55 relating to appropriating $2 million for water systems. And a 2/3 vote is needed. Okay, the voting time has elapsed. Ms. McNally, what is your position on this?
McNally, yes.
What is your position on that? Okay.
220 yes, 0 no, 3 abstentions.
Okay, the motion passes. Oh, God, I didn't say it. Did I say 221 yes, 0 no, 3 abstentions? Okay, so that's the total. I apologize. And the motion passes. Thank you. Okay. Yes, Ms. Brown. This relates to the expansion of classroom capacity for approximately $1.7 million.
Yes, and my apologies for being a little slow on the raising of the hand. I'm still trying to figure out if we have a reduction in student. Pardon me?
Hi, could you please identify yourself?
Oh, sure. My name is Deborah Brown, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 1. And my question goes to the need for the space at the for these large contracting services, since we have a reduction in the student body and we already have, and we have proper site and we have access to the Newberry site? Is all of this needed?
Mary Ellen Norman. Mary Ellen Norman, could you please address this and identify yourself as well?
Madam Moderator, the leases are still required in that most of the spaces.
Could you give us your name and your title?
Sorry. Yes, Madam Moderator, Mary Ellen Norman, Deputy Superintendent for Administration and Finance. The leases are currently required as they are for our preschool BEEP program. They are also for at the Clark Road School, which is also our BEEP and functions as administrative offices, as well as excess classroom space that is required. So the reduction in enrollment does not necessarily impact these leases at this time.
Thank you. Okay, we will now move on to budget item number 56. To appropriate $3 million for wastewater improvement systems to be bonded under General Law, Chapter 44, Section, I cannot read it, I apologize. And details about this can be found on page 9-49. We will take a vote on it, and there is a 2/3 majority required to pass it. I apologize. Yes, item 56. Article. Thank you. The voting time is over. Ms. McNally?
McNally, yes.
Okay, the total of the vote is 217 yes, 0 no, 3 abstentions. The motion passes. Our next item is number 57 under the special appropriations, which is to appropriate $915,000 to be bonded for improvements at the Murphy Playground. Details of this are provided on page 9-49. This needs a 2/3 vote. Start the count now, please. Yes, please. 9. Okay, voting is over. Ms. McNally?
McNally, yes.
And what are our totals? Okay, the totals are 229 yes, 0 no votes, 3 abstentions, and the motion passes. Next is number 58 under Article 9. It is to appropriate $1,150,000 for improvements at the Robinson Playground to be bonded under General Law, Chapter 44, Section 7-1. The details are on page 9/50. Okay, let's take a vote. 2/3 majority required. This is item 58. Okay, and what is the vote? Oh, sorry, Ms. McNally.
McNally, yes.
Here, the vote is 228 yes, 0 no's, and 2 abstentions. The motion passes. Okay. Now we get to the free cash item. Oh, I forgot 59. I apologize. That was not, that would not be good. Thank you. Oh, the mic. Oh, okay, is that better? I think I might have been squishing it. Okay. Thank you. Okay, item 59, with thanks to my assistant moderator for not letting us pass right by that. This is to appropriate $750,000 for building envelope / fenestration repairs to town and school facilities to be bonded under General Law, Chapter 44, Section 7(1). The details are found on page 9-50. We will start the vote now. 50 at 9:59. Okay, and the votes. Ms. McNally?
McNally, yes.
224 yes, 0 no, 3 abstentions.
Okay, the totals are 224 yes, 0 no's, and 3 abstentions. It passes by more than 2/3. Now we go to page 9-63 and consider the allocation of the town's $10 million of free cash. You could take a look at 9-63 and let me know if you have any questions about it. We will give you a few seconds. Oh, no, we're not voting. I'm just waiting to see if anybody has any questions. Okay, Ms. Brown, could you please identify yourself and let us know what your question is? Oh, Mr. Klein, you have a question? Jonathan Klein?
Yes, Jonathan Klein, town meeting member, precinct 10. The free cash allocation to the Housing Trust Fund is slated at $80,000, and that is a substantial reduction from prior years. I think it was about $700,000 for the prior fiscal year. So I'd like an explanation of why there's such a dramatic reduction in the allocation for affordable housing.
Jean Franconi, are you the person to address this? Or Melissa Goff? To Ms. Goff?
Good evening, Melissa Goff, Deputy Town Administrator. So the allocation of free cash is set by policy. And so for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, we allocate based on what's available after meeting the first priority of addressing the fund's undesignated fund balance position, funding the CIP, and then funding the the liability fund and the reserve fund. And so we had a large allocation to address the undesignated fund balance position, and that is why there was less available for other priorities within the policy requirements.
Okay, Ms. Brown, we are back to you. Could you please identify yourself and tell us what your question is?
Yes, my name is Deborah Brown, Town Meeting Member Precinct 1. I had a similar question, and I appreciate Melissa's answer, but as we just went through, I don't know, 40, a fair number of special appropriations, I guess my broader question is that if affordable housing is such a priority, why is it such a minuscule amount? And couldn't we in some way work with the other expenditures to actually increase what would end up in free cash and therefore in the Housing Trust Fund?
Ms. Goff or perhaps Mr. Sandman?
So we are following the policy guidance on allocation of free cash. The policy essentially says if the balance is below $5 million, then that is when the policy is triggered. So at the time of looking at the balance in the trust fund, there was less than $5 million, but I think it was somewhere around 4 million. In terms of plans for the Housing Trust Fund, I would defer to a member of the HAB to talk about whether or not there are any projects in the pipeline. At this point, I'm just looking at the policy and then making a recommendation based on that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, in 1 minute, we are going to be addressing the departmental budgets when you will have a chance to ask questions to department heads, whether it's related to finance or not. But before we get to that, we are going to deal with the select board's motion. Oh, certainly. Thank you. Mr. Klein, you are going to respond to Ms. Brown's question. Is that correct?
No, I'm going to respond to Ms. Goff's comment. When she asked a member of the HAB to address the question of the demands on the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. There are, significant demands on the Affordable Housing Trust Fund that as of now, we don't know how we're going to be able to meet. The project at Kenton Station Street, which is currently under negotiation, has a significant request that exceeds our resources. We just heard a very excellent presentation on a proposed senior project at 108 Center Street from Hebrew Senior Life. And that will be an appropriation of funds that is beyond what we have in our coffers right now. So right now, the demands on the Affordable Housing Trust Fund exceed the supply, to the best of my knowledge.
Michael Zurab. Z-O-O-R-O-B. Mr. Zurab.
Thank you. Good evening. Michael Zurab, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 3. I just had a question for my own understanding about items D and E, which appropriate money from free cash for the purpose of reducing the tax rate. I was just hoping that somebody could explain what those line items mean separately, D and E. Thanks.
Okay. I'll take volunteers at this point to answer that question. Reducing the tax rate and you'd say D&E. Back to Melissa. Okay, thank you. Thank you for the guidance.
Good evening, Melissa Goff, Deputy Town Administrator. The special appropriations, that's actually the allocation that supports the funding within the CIP. So from what we have just voted on the CIP, $4.8 million of that is funded via free cash. The language reduce the tax rate is required to be in the vote, but essentially it allows us to exceed what we have available in addition to the tax levy. The marijuana mitigation item E, that is free cash. That was the surplus from last year's HCA funds for marijuana. And so we are using free cash to support the activities in fiscal 22 until such time as we have a balance available in the stabilization fund to support additional activities.
Thank you. Ms. Zimmerman?
Hi, thanks. Amanda Zimmerman, town meeting member, precinct 7. I just wanted to follow up on something that Ms. Goff said. I believe that if the housing trust fund exceeds a certain level, that we no longer feel that we have as much of an obligation to send free cash there. I'm curious as to where that policy came from and what we need to do to fix it, because it doesn't really seem in line with priorities that we as a town meeting have set. Thank you.
Ms. Goff?
So these are the town's fiscal policies, and they are every year published in the budget. They are also published in the town meeting combined reports. These were set by a group that examined the town's policies, and it's reviewed occasionally for updates. The last group that looked at this was BFAC. This particular recommendation was not specifically addressed in terms of the allocation of free cash. But BFAC did recommend that potentially reprioritizing some of the items within the waterfall of free cash allocation might be warranted for look. But they specifically did not recommend a specific change to the existing policy. And these are select board policies.
Vina Priestley?
Hi, Vina Priestley, Precinct 4. So I just had a quick question in regards to the Housing Trust Fund. Is this helping out like Steps to Success and other funds that are needed to like do repairs within the house, or is this only specifically for new builds?
This question would best be addressed by someone from the HAB. If Roger Blood is on the call or a member of the HAB, I think they can speak to the use of the Affordable Housing Trust Funds.
Mr. Klein, since Mr. Blood is not available.
Jonathan Klein, a town meeting member from precinct 10 and member of the HAB. There are fairly broad uses that are possible for the Housing Trust Fund, but our allocations are based on specific requests that are made from time to time. You know, it's primarily allocated to new housing development projects that support highly affordable housing, but it can be used for other things. To my knowledge, it has not been used, for example, for Steps for Success. It has been used for some of the Brookline Housing Authority redevelopment projects with loans and grants for those projects. So that's the best I can do in terms of an answer. I'd be happy to talk more offline with you about the details of it.
Mr. Levy?
Mark Levy, Precinct 7. My question is, since this is the budget was prepared according to the selectmen's guidelines, does not town meeting have the right to change those amounts? And would the moderator entertain a question to add an amount to the Housing Trust Fund at this point? And
no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that we can't do that at this point. It might be, it will be addressed perhaps later on, but it is sort of out of order at this point, and we cannot entertain a motion to do that. I apologize. Okay, so we are now going to go to the orange supplement sheet that you received. Supplement 2. Pages 2 and 3, where there is a motion by the select board to amend the advisory committee's budget. And the budget is amended to read as follows. The sum of $6,417,000 included in the building department appropriation for school building maintenance shall be expended for school plant repair and maintenance and not for any other purpose. The listing of work to be accomplished shall be established by the school department. The feasibility and prioritization of the work to be accomplished under the school plant repair and maintenance budget shall be determined by the superintendent of schools. However, I think the relevant item is has to do with the allocation of $95,000 of the select board services account. Could I have maybe Mr. Fernandez address this? I'm not doing a good job in explaining it. I apologize. Well, Mr. Salmon, yeah, it relates to the $95,000 appropriation to the select board budget for a new department head. I apologize.
I'm happy to defer to
Entity.
the town administrator if Mel Collector would like to address this directly.
Hi, certainly. This is Mel Kleckner, Town Administrator. So this item was the result of my effort to reach a proposal around a sort of a dual type of a recommendation from the Police Task Force for Reimagining as well as the Police Reform Committee. Both of those committees addressed social services in the sense that policing in the future will hopefully be less involved in matters of social services, and hopefully we can bring more civilian resources to bear on that and to avoid some of the unfavorable interactions with police and people with mental illness or other interactions. And so it wasn't until April 6th that the select board did take this up, and there's no fault to anybody. It's just these were very hard decisions. And what the committees both wanted to do was to expand civilian social services to remove some of the burden from police and to increase the scope and safety net services for vulnerable communities in Brookline. So I think there was no real dispute about that. It was really how to actually accomplish that. And so they left it up to me to make a proposal, and I did. And so what I had proposed was that that in addition to consulting, and I believe that the town does need expert and independent consulting to talk about how we are going to structure our social services in this community. To date, our social services have been scattered throughout the town in various budgets, school department, health department, council on aging, recreation. And so it was my feeling that in addition to a consultant, we needed somebody on the ground, at the town level, helping coordinate these kind of services on a daily basis, and also helping the consultant identify really what needs to be done. And so this was essentially a hybrid approach that I developed between the Task Force on Reimagining as well as the Police Reform Committee. And if we do hire somebody, which I recommend we do, to do this coordination, it will cost money. It's allocated in the personnel side of the budget. And I think what I'm hearing from the advisory committee is that they're not quite ready for that yet, and they would prefer having all the money appropriated in consulting services and then maybe wait for the select board to approach them. But no, I think the select board has voted to pursue this, and this is really the crux of the motion. Happy to answer any questions about my thoughts about this this position.
Okay, there are people who want to make comments, but actually I would like to give Mr. Salmon the opportunity if he wishes to explain what the advisory committee's opinion is or position is.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Mike Sandman, Chair of the Advisory Committee, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 3. The rationale in the Advisory Committee was that we felt that it would be wise to obtain a consultant's report before embarking on any sort of hiring. There was a very considerable discussion on the Advisory Committee on this point, and the vote was about 3 to 1 in favor of the approach that we took. That doesn't mean that there were not people who accepted the approach that the town administrator was is suggesting. Honestly, I don't think that there's an enormous difference between these two, because if the money is left in the services budget at some point in the future when there's a consulting report in hand, and before we've made a commitment to, which will happen in the advisory committee's view, before we make a commitment to hire anybody, then the select board could come back to the advisory committee and request a change in the accounts, and I think at that point the advisory committee would respond quite favorably.
Thank you. Who has questions relating to this? We have some people lined up. Amy Takanami. Hold on 1 second, please. Oh, okay. Not usually a problem. I will raise my voice. Amy Takanami, could you please tell us what your question is and identify yourself?
Hi, Amy Takanami, she, her, hers. I'm a town meeting member in precinct 10. And I just would like to speak in favor of the select board and town administrator's amendment of the AC's budget motion, which was originally supported by the thoughtful and visionary work of the task force to reimagine policing. First off, to argue,
I really do appreciate that, but right now we are focusing on questions and not giving positions on issues. So do you have a question relating to this?
I do not. I just would urge my colleagues tonight to please vote in favor of the select board's amendment of the AC's budget motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Well, I am not sure it is appropriate that people actually speak in favor of this. I understand that there is a position in favor of it, and one of the positions is also for the advisory committee, but I think that the explanations have been given on each side and that town meeting needs to vote based on the information it has been provided with by the advisory committee and Mr. Fernandez and Mr. Kleckner. Okay, what is that, Mr. Gasach?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. David Gasach, Precinct 13. Point of order. If now is not the appropriate time for town meeting members to debate amendments and other items of the budget, when are you going to provide the opportunity to do that? Because it's, I believe, would be improper not to provide that opportunity.
You know, you have a good point. So we will go back and let people, I will reverse what I just said, acknowledge your point of order, and we will start with Ms. Takanami because she had something to say. I would ask that people keep their comments to 2 minutes, please.
thank you, Dave, for that point of order. Again, I just want to speak in favor of the select board and town admin's amendment of the AC's budget motion. I think to argue that there may not be a need for additional social services and that we must continue to study the need through a consultant would be discounting the 7 months of hard work, research, and community engagement that the volunteer members of the task force to reimagine policing participated in. The task force's main and final recommendation after months of deep relationship building, interviews, and public hearings was the expansion of forward-thinking social services that would address the root causes of crime and criminalized behaviors in our town. The select board and the town administrator's version of the budget are not asking to hire a fully staffed brand new department, but merely a full-time position in addition to a consultant, so that there's enough capacity and commitment to adequately begin the necessary work to expand, deepen, and coordinate the social services we offer in town and determine the gaps and opportunities and next steps available to us. Delay tactics are dismissive to the work of the task force and the leadership of the select board, and more importantly, I would say harmful to the communities who would benefit right now from robust, well-coordinated, centralized, local, and expanded social services. Again, this is a matter not just of health and well-being, but of public safety as well for all of us, and we can't afford to delay any longer. Again, I urge my colleagues tonight to please vote in favor of the select board's amendment of the AC's budget motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Takanami. And who do we have next? Natalia Linos, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you so much, Madam Moderator. And I want to echo what Ms. Takanami has said. I also want to join those urging you to vote for this motion. And for me, it's more, as a social epidemiologist, as someone who has spent the last year looking at COVID, I take it from that perspective. We are going to see those inequities that we saw in terms of who was being harmed by COVID, being harmed in terms of the long-term, recovery. And so whether you agree with the recommendations of the two, the two panels, the task forces, and frame this as a policing issue, the bottom line is we're talking about social safety nets, and we know that the need is here. It is immediate. I do not think we can wait. We also need some continuity. We can't talk about a consultant coming in, studying, making recommendations, and then waiting 6 months or a year. We need this action coordination right now. We know that it is the same people who fall into, who are vulnerable both because of the COVID impact, because of the way our policing is done, because of poverty, because of inequality in our town. So I urge you to not wait. We will need this position. So let's start today.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Linos. Who do we have next? Ryan Black.
Thank you,
Mr.
Madam
Black.
Moderator.
Could you
Ryan,
identify yourself?
Yep, Ryan Black, Precinct 6, pronouns he, him, his. I'm speaking in favor of the Select Board's amendment so that it can take its and the town administrator's preferred approach towards expanding social services. The idea on the table is very much a product of the months of research the Task Force to Reimagine Policing conducted. The task force found that for the town to adopt a more holistic approach to public safety, we must expand the social services our town offers. Accordingly, the town administrator has found the money in the budget to hire the necessary persons to begin this expansion. The AC's version of this budget, unfortunately, makes it so the money necessary to hire the person who will lead this effort is only available if the AC itself decides it likes the consultant's recommendations. There's no need to slow down this process anymore. The task force came to this conclusion after months and months of research, and the select board and town administrator have responded accordingly in the form of this amendment. It doesn't make sense to set up a process where back and forth with the AC will be necessary. So please vote yes on the select board's amendment. And I echo the points that town meeting members Takanami and Linos made before me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I actually do not want to call the question at this point. I would like to let a couple of more people speak because I think that Mr. Gaysach had a very good point in terms of making his point of order. So I would like to continue for a little bit and call on Bonnie Bastian.
Hello, Bonnie Bastian, Precinct 5. Pronouns are she, her, hers. I also want to speak in favor of the Select Board's amendment to the AC's budget motion. The Select Board voted unanimously to support the town administrator's strategy to hire a senior in-house resource person as well as a consultant to begin their work together to expand the civilian social services for vulnerable communities in Brookline. The question on the table is not whether or not this expansion of social services is needed. Both the task force and the reform committee studied this and are in agreement. The question is whether or not we can hit the ground running. The advisory committee motion slows this process down and doesn't allow the coordination of existing services and community relationship building to happen in tandem with the consultant's assessment of what is needed and wanted by our communities. There's no need to hand the reins over to the advisory committee to decide when they think we should hire someone to begin organizing this work. Both the select board and the town administrator are in agreement on this. Please vote to take action. We all see the need. Let's act accordingly. Please vote yes on the select board's amendment to the AC's budget motion. Thank you.
Thank you. We have 2 more speakers. I will let them speak and then I will entertain a motion to call the question. Ms. Naomi Schweitzer.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Naomi Schweitzer, Precinct 10. Echoing what some folks have said before, I would urge everyone to vote favorably on the select board's motion on this. The urgent need is now. We cannot slow down on this. We have been talking about these issues for multiple years now, and we really need both the consultant and the staff person to help us lift this off. All you need to do is drive or walk or bike down Aspinwall and go by St. Paul Street and on when the food pantry has their pickup days to see people in line waiting for food. All you need to do is call the Brookline Mental Health Center and be told that there's a wait list for services. All you need to do is call the Brookline Housing Authority and hear how many years it is for an apartment or to get a Section 8. We desperately need better coordination across the services we have and to understand the services that we need. We cannot wait any longer. We are a rich and wealthy town. We can do this. We do not need to wait any longer. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Green.
Madam Moderator, I've been trying to make a point of information for quite a while. And my concern is that this discussion is framed as if there's only one proposal on the table, and that's the proposal that came out of the task force. And the assertion that that is what the select board has adopted. My recollection of our discussions included the fact that both the task force and the reform committee agreed that we needed additional resources for various social services, including to release some of the burden from the police department. But the reform committee in our deliberations noticed something, that we have a Department of Public Health and Human Services and other departments that currently are addressing these issues, but not necessarily adequately. So our proposal was to look at the need for social services through a consultant or whatever, but to have as an option expanding our existing structure of providing social services in this town. So I hope when people vote for the select board version of this, that they don't think that this is necessarily preordained to result in a particular outcome. We could be creating a whole new big department of social services, or we could be expanding and improving what we already have and what would be a more cost-effective way and a way that would not undermine the existing work that's being done by our Department of Health and Human Services, our Diversity Office, and other departments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I will entertain a motion to call a question. If not, I will just hold a vote. Does anyone have a motion to call the question, or you already got it? Okay, well, actually, I am now re-entertaining the motion to call the question, and I am going to call the question. I would like a second. It's been seconded. Thank you very much. And we will now vote on the appropriation. Oh, I apologize. You're correct. Okay, we have waiting to speak Chi Wu, Nathan Spritz, Carol Hillman, Janice Kahn, Mike Sandman, and Alyssa Jonas. So we will now vote on calling the question. Ms. Bernard.
Good evening, Lauren Bernard, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 8. I have a point of order, I suppose. I just want to, if you could just explain what a yes vote is exactly for and what a no vote is exactly for on this particular question. I think it would be helpful. There's been a lot of talk and debate, and sometimes the actual question gets a little bit lost, especially for people who are new to this. Thanks.
No, that is a very good point. It is confusing. It has to do with a transfer, and I'm going to let Mr. Fernandez expand on it, relating to a transfer from allocation in the advisory committee account to the select board's recommendation that the $95,000 be appropriated to select board services. Mr. Fernandez, would you like to get into this a little more and make it clear?
Sure thing. Thank you, Madam Moderator. I think what some of the commenters made clear was the select board's motion gives the select board the freedom and flexibility to hit the ground running on this and to, as it sees fit, invest in both personnel and consulting. And the advisory committee's motion requires that the select board comes back to the advisory committee for that personnel piece. And I think that's just the essential difference there.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Newbrega, what is your point of order?
Thank you, Mariah Newbrega, Precinct 4. When we're talking about calling the question, are you calling the question on the entire budget or just on this one aspect?
That's yes, it is just on this one particular issue relating to the allocation that Mr. Fernandez just described of $95,000. We are not doing the omnibus vote on the budget at this point. So, okie dokie, Mr. Levy, what is your point of order?
Hi, this is Mark Levy, Precinct 7 again. I want to be clear, especially for the new members, that the question before us, the vote before us, is not whether to approve or disapprove the motion, that the amendment. It's simply whether we would cut off debate. If we vote to cut off debate, then we go to the vote on the amendment itself. Also, my understanding is that a vote to call the question, once a motion is made and seconded, that it includes further debate. We have to go directly to the vote, and we can't debate the vote or any other debates on the motion that's being in the background. Thank you.
Oh, that's a good point, and I have to admit I've been a little liberal in the interpretation of the points of order. But now we will get to a vote not on the issue itself, but as to whether or not we are going to call the question and end debate on this particular issue. So a majority vote is required. We'll start now. Thank you.
2/3 vote.
There's votes required.
You're done. Ms. McNally?
McNally, yes.
49 yes, 79 no, 5 abstentions.
Okay, the vote is 149 yes, 79 no,
79 no.
and 5 abstentions. Okay, the motion fails. It's a 2/3 Hold up, I apologize. First day on the job, as they say. Okay, the motion fails, and we will continue debate. I will now call on Chi-Chi Wu.
Madam Moderator, Chi-Chi Wu, she, her, hers, Town Meeting Member Precinct 7, Advisory Committee, Task Force on Reimagining Policing. So I've had an intimate look into all of this. Spent 7 years, 7 months, it feels like 7 years of volunteer work on the Task Force for Reimagining Policing. We put a lot of work in and came out with some great recommendations, including this one. So it was deeply disappointing, to say the least, that I was on the losing side of the advisory committee vote, and that the advisory committee voted only to approve funding for the consultant and not for the position, the actual position to get this social service work started. When you have both the Task Force on Reimagining Policing and the Policing Reform Committee and the town administrator, everyone agreeing, and we're talking about $95,000 here, to be, to be voted down on that is very disappointing, both on an issue and also personally. And I have to say, this idea that we just vote for the consultant and go back to advisory to get authorization for the funding for the position, and I'm sure advisory will vote for it. Well, I thought advisory would vote to approve the select board and the town administrator's proposal, and it seemed like a no-brainer. So I would urge voting yes on the select board's amendment.
Thank you very much. We now have Mr. Spritz.
Thank you, Madam Moderator, and it gives me much pleasure to be able to say thank you, Madam Moderator. Nathan Spritz, Precinct 16. I echo what everybody else said, but I wanted to speak for a different reason. I am so very proud that we have an executive that actually wants to take a stand on an issue, has a plan to actually move forward with it, and wants to make our town better. And for that reason alone, I stand with the select board and the town administrator. And I would urge everybody to vote to accept the select board's amendment to the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spritz. We now have Carol Hillman. Okay. Okay, we are not going to move on to Janice Kahn.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. So Janice Kahn, Town Meeting Member Precinct 15, and also on advisory. And I'd like to add a little bit more nuance to the advisory committee discussion. I think that it hasn't been well presented. The hesitation, part of the hesitation on the advisory committee had to do with the fact that we wanted to hear directly from our town administrator, Mel Kleckner, who was not available to be with us to explain his rationale. And we felt it was really important for us to have that conversation. So that didn't happen. The other thing is that many of us felt that the money was inadequate to do a good job with both consulting and hiring a top level person. And so there was hesitation about that. Some saw that it might be better rather than hiring a top level person when we don't really know the role of that person yet. It could have been, the money could have been put directly into hiring a social worker or a person literally on the ground doing the work at the time. So I want to correct the impression that the advisory committee only wanted to hire a consultant and wasn't interested in the other piece. We understand and understood the importance of the work of both of the committees that spent many months discussing very critical issues to this town. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, the question has been called. I will accept a second. If there is a second of the motion, call the question. It's been seconded. Okay, we will now take a vote and I'm sorry. I can't hear you. Oh, God. Okay, sorry. In line to speak are Mr. Sandman, Alyssa Jonas, Amy Hummel, Dick Benka, Paul Warren, Ariel Maddox. Now that I have given you that information, and I apologize for leaving it out, we will start the vote on whether to call the question. Okay, the vote is over. Ms. McNally.
No, McNally, no.
Okay, got 144 yes, 78 no, 5 abstentions.
Yes, the motion fails. Okay, we will continue with Mr. Sandman.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Mike Sandman, and I'm not going to speak as advisory committee chair, but rather as a town meeting member from precinct 3. Because I, as the chair of the advisory committee, I don't vote unless there's a tie. Had there been a tie, I would have voted against earmarking the money solely for a consultant for, if nothing else, for symbolic reasons. I was a member of the task force on reimagining policing in Brookline, and I support the town administrators initiative in this case to take what was recommended by the task force and by the reform committee and actually do something with it. So I will be voting in favor of the select board, the select board's motion.
Thank you. Alyssa Jonas.
Hi, Lisa Jonas, town meeting member for precinct 16 and also a member of the advisory committee. And I actually am surprised that Mr. Sandman felt that in any way the advisory committee was questioning whether to hire someone to provide social services oversight. And I want to follow up on what Select Board Member Green said and Janice Kahn said, which is we were told that it was going to be a cabinet level position who would be appointed. And yet we have a director of Health and Human Services. We have people who are concerned at Veteran Services and at the Senior Center about how their roles will be affected. And we thought it made the most sense to take an analytic look at the organizational chart and see where that person belongs. And I guess I am concerned that the advisory committee has so little credibility that there's an assumption that our strategy was to put money in services so that we would not, so that we would have the control to not hire someone. That was absolutely not the intent of the advisory committee. The advisory committee was intent on finding the best position that that person should be when they are hired, and not to hire someone who will then be shifted to a different position once the consultant has determined, yes, it would be best under Health and Human Services, or it should be a separate department, and how does the organizational chart work? So I can understand going either way. It's not a huge difference. Our assumption was the consultant would do the work and we would then transfer the money for personnel once we've made that analysis.
Thank you. Amy Hummel.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Amy Hummel, Precinct 12, and on the advisory committee as well. So Janice and Elisa and Bernard previously made excellent points. And so I won't repeat all of that. I will note though, again, because I think it's important, the narrative and the framing of the advisory committee's position on this from other members did not at all reflect actually the discussion we had. And we were all concerned that evening because there was no one there and we were talking amongst ourselves, which is, that alone, we like to have experts around as well. And we did not have the benefit of that. And moreover, in the end and for advisory as well, our job is financial planning. And I know for me personally, as an individual and certainly as an advisory committee member, I want to know what I'm buying. I want to know exactly what I'm getting. And we didn't know that. And we still don't exactly know what that will be. We may find through the consultant that we need something a little bit different than maybe we're thinking about tonight or that people may have anticipated in other committees earlier. Not that that work should be thrown out, but we may learn more. And so in order to make the most strategic and the best decisions, and it may actually require more money, that's, I think, what it is. It's an issue of, knowing what you're going to buy, knowing what you're going to get, and what we need. And so it was, I don't think ever any conversation I heard was about not funding it, but more, let's know what we're actually getting. And maybe we need a bigger plan, actually, before we actually release the money. Town meeting members should do what they will, but that was certainly the discussion. That was certainly my perspective and continues to be. I'm a long-term, planner type, so I will stay that route. But that is all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have another motion to call the question. Does it have a second? It's been seconded. Okay, we will now hold a vote. But nope, sorry, I need to tell you who is left to speak. Sorry, after Amy Hummel, there's Dick Benka, Mr. Warren, Ariel Maddox, and Michael Burstein. We will now vote on the motion to call the question. Ready to okay, here we go. Okay, Ms. McNally?
McNally, yes.
150 yes, 79 no, 6 abstentions.
Okay, it fails again. 64% gets that 2%. All right, Mr. Benka.
Dick Benka, Precinct 13. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm actually going to diverge from the advisory committee position and vote for the select board position on this, with the recognition that this is doing something that is different from what we've done before. This diverges from what we as a town have done when we created the Economic Development Department. It diverges from what we did when we created a sustainability position. We have always studied the structure that made sense before we started hiring into that position. But that being said, what gives me comfort here is that the vote that we're being asked to take does not refer to a department head. It does not refer to a director. It simply refers to a senior in-house resource. And that, and if you look on page 2 of Article 9, supplement number 2, that senior in-house resource might end up being an outreach coordinator within an existing department. It might end up being somebody in the role of a consultant within the Health and Human Services Department, or within the Senior Services Department, within the Council on Aging. It is simply defined as a senior in-house resource. I would not vote for this if we were talking about hiring a department head to head a department that had no people in it. But as framed, the language, I think, is flexible enough that we're not walking down a path that we don't want to walk down. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Okay, Mr. Rosenthal. I think we should keep track of how many points of order there are tonight. I think we're going to hit a record. Mr. Rosenthal. I'm sorry. Oh, you need to unmute yourself. Is that the issue?
Am I muted?
Nope, now we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. I don't recall any discussion of the chart on page 3 of the supplement about where the money's coming from. Did I just miss that, or else that's my point of order?
I don't think we discussed that, but the money is in the select board budget, yes, as described and shown in more detail. So I stand corrected. Technically, yes, it was discussed as to where it would come from. And we're going to move on. But thank you for your point of order. And we now have Paul Warren.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for your patience as we navigate this issue. I'm Paul Warren, a town meeting member in Precinct 1, and also a member of the advisory committee. I do want to provide a little more context as to the situation and where advisory landed. It was very unfortunate that that the town administrator or the deputy town administrator was not available to describe this position to us. The problem arose when the chair of the advisory committee, who was actually a member of the task force to reimagine, brought this proposal to us. And I remember the conversation and the debate, and we didn't feel like it was well represented. And in fact, I actually believe that the chair probably should have recused himself from presenting. It was unfortunate. And so the way that this was brought to our attention was we were told that it was probably going to be a cabinet level position, a department level position, and that the consultant, and it was characterized this way, that the consultant would essentially help this department level person write their job description. And the discussion with the advisory was very concerned that this was too early. We knew that there was a lot of debate and there wasn't consensus to whether a department should be set up and when the integration had been determined. So that's why the advisory committee recommended the consulting dollars to come in. That consultant would report directly to the town administrator to help the town administrator navigate and integrate what the needs are and determine what the position would need to be. We know that there's more services needed, but I just want to make sure that people understand that this has nothing to do with the advisory committee trying to control whether a position gets filled or not. It really was about how it was presented to us, that it was a department level position and that it was not, it was going to be funded by these dollars and a job description would be written for this individual. So I really just want to provide that context. That's why it occurred. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. Mr. Sandman, is it Mr. Sandman has a point of order? Okay, Mr. Sandman, what is your point of order?
Well, Mike Sandman, Advisory Committee Chair, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 3. Madam Moderator, am I allowed to correct misinformation that's been presented by another speaker? I don't want to improperly use a point of order.
That's not a point of order. So no, you can't do it in this context. If you
That's all
want
right.
to,
Then I'll withdraw the comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ariel Maddox. Ms. Maddox.
Ariel Maddox, town meeting member, precinct 10, she, her. Thank you. So yes, this is about our finances and what we want to prioritize for our money. And we need to make a plan and do it at the same time with given urgency. We have urgent needs, and we've been continuing to explore and debate this. And we have a carefully considered and provided recommendation from the select board. And so I am going to be voting in favor of the select board recommendation, and I hope that others will join in that. I understand that there was a lot of consideration that people put into the reason that we have this debate, but I think that the clear and aligned recommendation here makes a lot of sense, and it will help address urgent needs that can't be delayed any longer. There are people who are really suffering. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry. Has the question's been called, do we have a second? It has been seconded. What is it, the fourth time's a charm? I apologize. Okay. We waiting to speak. We have Mr. Burstein, Mr. Klein, Mr. Levy, Mr. Van Scoyoc, and Ms. Frawley. All right, we are now going to take a vote on whether to call the question. Okay. Okay, Ms. McNally?
McNally, no.
We have 184 yes, 41 no, 6 abstentions.
Okay, this passes. We will now vote on the main motion. Before we do, I want to actually, again, thank Mr. Gasach for I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, but for making his point of order, because this is obviously a very important issue to people, and I am glad that people got to state their points of view. Okay. Yes, Ms. Nebrega, what is your point of order?
Mariah Nebrega, precinct 4. You just said we were voting on the main motion. Are you saying that we're voting on this bit of it now? We're not going to go through the rest of the departmental budgets first?
No, I apologize. We are voting on the motion we have been discussing for the past 45 minutes or so, which is the amendment that the
so you're not going to hold all of the voting to the end?
We are not making an omnibus vote. We still have to go through the departmental issues. There is still a lot to discuss on the budget. What we are voting on now is the amendment to the budget, which provides for the select board services account to receive the funding of $95,000. Is that clear? And then if we were to move on tonight, we would move on to departmental expenses and then eventually an omnibus vote. So we are now going to take a vote on the motion to amend the advisory committee's budget as is specified on page 3 of supplement 2 of Article 9. Yes, yes. And a majority vote is required. Okay, Ms. McNally, how do you vote?
McNally, no.
192 yes, 38 no, excuse me, 5 abstentions. The motion passes. Okay, it is now 10:35. There are still significant issues with lots of questions based on ones that have already been presented on the budget relating to departmental matters. So I would entertain a motion that we adjourn until tomorrow night, if one such motion were to be made. Moved and seconded. All right, okay, let's take the vote. Yeah, I will. I will. All right, Ms. McNally, how do you vote?
Yes. McNally, yes.
Thank you.
Total of 197 yes, 27 no, with 6 abstentions.
Okay, 197 yes, 27 no, and 6 abstentions. We are adjourned until tomorrow at 7 p.m. I look forward to seeing you all there. Thank you very much.